Okay, well, thank you for attending the moderators meeting. Oh, okay.
Why don't I go out and see if I can. Try not to knock anything over as I can.
Keep those, and I will email you my script.
All right.
I do a script for the whole thing.
Is anything going to present on the 19th? Or is it just going to be the motion?
We don't know yet.
It's just like school. Nobody wants to sit in the front row.
So you'll be just looking to David.
Get called on.
Actually, I found in Latin class that Mr. Longland would look right out over the front row, and when he moved me from the back to the front, I got called on half as much.
People in the back trying to get away from
You're trying to align yourself perfectly with the person in front of you.
on the way.
When does James usually make his presentation? After which article is it? Yeah. Before we do any of the articles? Okay. Speakers and what we do is just go through the process.
Dave, how are you? Nice to see you.
So this, John Cohn was going to hand out.
Paul White. Nice to see you.
Okay. Oh, Dave just disappeared. Okay, now we're ready to start the meeting. Let me introduce everybody at the table before we start to discuss the process for town meeting. On my far right, your far left is Dave Ramsey, the town administrator. David Havlin, the assistant town moderator. Paul White, assistant town moderator. I'm Jim Rapetti, the moderator. On my left is Nina Pickering Cook, the town council. Next to her is Peter Smith, assistant town moderator. And next to Peter is Felicia Hoffman, our town clerk. And before I start formally this meeting, let me just say a big thank you to Felicia Hoffman, to Dave Ramsey, and Greer, who is not here but in the back.
Way in the back, yeah.
Yep, for all of their work in trying to make sure that this town meeting will run smoothly. As I'm about to explain, there have been a number of changes to the process for town meeting to try to ensure that we'll have a smooth operation and that hopefully we'll be able to finish all of our business in the first evening. First of all, given the expected turnout, Felicia has made arrangements to have 3 rooms available at the high school. We'll have the auditorium, we'll have the cafeteria, which will hold approximately an additional 500.
Just about, yeah.
And then we're also going to prepare the gymnasium, just in case we have an overflow that will end up in the gymnasium. There will be sound and pictures in the cafeteria and in the gymnasium. Seats will be set up in sections in the cafeteria. The tables will be removed so that there will be rows of seats set up in sections, much the way the auditorium is organized. And similarly, in the gymnasium, the bleachers will be pushed back against the wall and seats will be arranged in sections as they would be in the auditorium. David Havlin will be the assistant town moderator in the cafeteria. Paul White will be on the stage with me, and Peter Smith will be in the gymnasium. They will be acting as the moderators in those rooms, recognizing people if they're seconding a motion. The only difference that we're going to have, because of having sections, or 3 possible locations for the meeting, it's not going to be possible to have people speak at each of the locations. So we're going to ask the people who are in the cafeteria or who are in the gymnasium, come to the auditorium, and we're going to have 2 microphones set up in the front, and we're going to ask people to queue up. So instead of my calling on people who are seated and not being able to see, obviously, people who are in the cafeteria, the gymnasium, those wishing to speak will have to queue up, and then we'll alternate microphones. Now, some people will not be able to, because of physical challenges, to be able to stand in line. For those individuals, we're going to have seating arranged in the midsection of the auditorium, and depending on how many people are queued up, I will scan that section and try to have a proportionate representation of those persons who are seated in that section who aren't able to queue up, so that essentially all persons will have an equal opportunity to speak. Given that time is going to be of the essence, we are going to be very strict this year in enforcing our time limitations. As in prior years, there'll be 2 minutes for speakers from the floor. There'll be 10 minutes for speakers who are the major proponents or opponents of the major articles. And Paul, up on the stage with me, will be holding up signs letting you know how much time you have left. And last year we were pretty good. We only had a couple who went over 30 seconds or so. I'm hoping that we can do the same this time with actually no overrun. Because every second that we take during the meeting is going to be somebody's sleep time later that evening. So I think it's really important for us to be courteous and respectful of the time of others and limit ourselves to the time that all are going to be allowed, in order that we have fairness to the speakers as well as to the audience. In addition, in order to save time, I'm expecting that on some of these votes we would have to move to a standing count. If we have over 1,000 people, a standing count would take anywhere from half hour to 40 minutes. So we're going to use clickers this year for the first time. And there'll be technicians from the company, and again, I thank Felicia for organizing all of this, technicians who will be on site with us to help us in the event that we have any issues arise in the use of the clickers. I'll be talking about this at the beginning of town meeting during my prefatory remarks. However, let me say it now so that anybody's watching, they might want to take notes. The clicker is like a little keyboard that you have on your cell phone, and pressing 1 will be a yes vote, pressing 2 will be a no vote. And you will have 20 seconds to register that vote once I call the question. You can change your mind at any time during those 20 seconds, and it will be the last button that you push that will be registered for the vote. If somebody has a technical difficulty, they should raise their hand. They should not speak out, but instead raise your hand, and I or other people on the stage in the auditorium, Dave in the gymnasium, and Peter, Dave in the cafeteria and Peter in the gymnasium will call technicians in to look at that person's clicker to make sure that in fact it has malfunction. They can check to see whether it's registered a vote. If it has not registered a vote, then we will ask that individual to tell either the technician or the assistant moderator what their vote is. That will then be communicated to me, so when we announce the final tally, those who were not able to have an operational clicker will have their vote counted. It is my understanding that this company has an excellent track record, so I am not expecting that we will have any technical difficulties, but just in case. One other aspect of the clickers, because of the technology, each clicker will only work in the room that you are designated to sit in. So as people come in, they'll be designated to sit in the auditorium. Then after that fills up, in the cafeteria. Your clicker will only work in that room. So that will mean that if somebody is queued up to speak and the question is called, we will wait for you to return to your designated room, and another role that the assistant town moderators will be serving will be to confirm that those who left have returned, and then we will call the question and start the 20-second voting period. Felicia has done a lot of work in trying to look ahead and project, and has done a great job, and the company that she has selected is also highly competent. So again, really appreciate this. And this should save us, if we have 3 votes that we would have to have a standing vote, this will save us about an hour and a half of time, at least, right? At least. If we have 1,500 people, a standing vote could take close to an hour, perhaps. So that will be the general setup. Again, as I've mentioned to many of you individually, and let me also now repeat it again, time is so important, and you will alienate people if you go over. And if something can be stated concisely, you will get additional votes for your position if you're able to state it in a concise manner, and instead of wasting people's time. Really important. And I know all of you, many of you, I've already spoken to you about this individually. A lot of you have spoken in the past and have done wonderful work in the past, and I just want to impress upon you how great it will be that you can continue this effort going forward. So really thank you very much for your patience and also your preparation, because obviously to say something concisely requires more preparation than to say something verbosely. So many thanks for your help. Any questions about the change in the process that we're going to be following before? Yes, sir.
Jim, so you mentioned designated rooms, so all citizens by name or street or whatever are designated to certain...
Felicia, why don't you respond to this?
Okay, so we're going to do sort of a first come, first serve.
Okay.
The first room we're going to try to fill is the auditorium. Once that is filled, and that's determined by how many seats and how many clickers, and the very important thing that I would like to mention is people need to be in seats, not sitting on the stairs in the auditorium. They need to be in the seats that are provided. Once the clickers, which equate to the number of seats, are used up, we will then take the clickers for the cafeteria. Once those are used up, we will go to the gym. They are color coded. When you check in, it's going to be patient, it's going to take a minute longer, but we will tell you, you have red, that's the auditorium, you need to be in there for your vote to be counted, or whatever the color will be. So you will be able to see it and realize what you're doing.
So are you taking, so it's related to that, are you taking, so if we have an outside speaker that's coming, are you taking names that we should give you? Or?
Well, I wanted to talk about the outside speakers, and when we get to that article, let me talk about that. But if there is an outside speaker, then they would be designated to sit in the visitor section. And I'll tell you right now, my bias is against having outside speakers, but I want to discuss with you, there's a history here that has already occurred. I want to share that history with you, and then we can talk about whether we should proceed with outside speakers or not. But when we get to the rail trail articles, we can talk a little bit more about that, because I think that's where it's most pertinent. Okay. Any other questions, or? Okay, well, let's now move to the heart of the meeting. At the beginning of the meeting, I will explain to the assembled boards the process that we'll be following for the vote. There will be a PowerPoint that will be put on the screen before each vote, outlining the process of how to use the clickers. And then we'll move into the article. So let's proceed through the articles. The first article will be to act on various reports of various committees. And Kate Canny, who is here, will be making the motion. And John Cohn, Kate Canny is not here, but John, who is here, will be seconding the motion. And that's usually a very perfunctory motion that shouldn't take more than 30 seconds. Moving to Article 2, Again, usually this is a perfunctory motion that authorizes the Board of Selectmen to enter into contracts in anticipation of funds that are allotted by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Usually there's no discussion. Ms. Alders will be making a motion, and Mr. Peterson, Rodney Peterson, will be seconding. I don't anticipate that there'll be any discussion with respect to Article 2, Rodney, do you? Okay. No, John, no, okay. Article 3, we will then be moving to see if the town will set the salaries for its elected officials. And I will read down a list of the salaries that are listed in Article 3. If nobody says hold, then that motion to approve the salaries will be deemed to have been approved. If somebody says hold, then the salary for which there was a hold will be deemed not to have been approved. And at that point, I'll turn to Ms. Cherico and ask her to make a motion approving that item for which a hold has been stated. And then I will turn to the person who stated the hold, ask them what their question is, have a discussion about that, and then move to a vote on the item for which the hold was requested. So we'll proceed through that. Usually, with respect to this article, there are very few holds, if none. Fairly recently, there have been none, but if there is a hold, we'll move through it expeditiously, and we'll have a series of votes with respect to each item for which there was a hold. Again, if there's no hold, it's deemed to have been approved. Okay, the way the motion is stated. Article 4 is a similar item. We'll be looking for raising appropriate for salaries and expenditures by departments, officers, boards, and committees. Mr. Cohn will make the motion. Ms. Canny will second. And James, usually at this point, would you want to make your presentation? So James will present at this point, on behalf of the Warrant Committee, a review of the budget and why they're requesting the numbers that are appearing in Article 4. And Mr. Stewart has worked very hard to get his presentation under 10 minutes. In fact, I was told the other night at the Warrant Committee that I was down to 7 minutes. So thank you. Yeah, thank you, James. I think that's great work. Thank you very much. After James makes the presentation, we will then read through the list of items. Again, same process. If there's no objection, we'll just read through and it will be deemed to have been approved by the town meeting. If anybody says hold, the item that they're saying hold with respect to will in effect now be deemed to require a special vote. We'll have a new motion with respect to that item for which there was a hold. We'll have a second. We'll then ask the person who stated the hold to articulate their question or their reason for the hold, and then we'll have a vote on that item. And we'll go through each of the holds in seriatim until we've completed all of the items for which a hold was stated. This may take a little bit of time. But we're hoping that with the clickers and with persons being concise in their statements that we'll be able to proceed fairly quickly through this. And I will be going very fast. After I've gone through, because I will be going fast, I will ask each of the moderators and also the town clerk to confirm that what holds they heard. So people, if they felt that they weren't heard, will have an opportunity to once again say, I said hold on moderator salary, which is 0, by the way. Right. And
It's tripled this year, just
yeah,
on record.
right. Well, as I'll say at town meeting, you get what you pay for. but the process of doing this will be quick, so I realize that some people may be a little bit startled. There will be an opportunity after I've gone through the list to say, sorry, sir, I said hold on 3. Or I meant to say hold on 3, but you went so fast. And then we'll go through the process. So the fact that I'm going fast, hopefully we'll still be able to get the objections. Yeah.
So if there's a hold on the budget, are you going to look first to the Warrant Committee for a response?
Well, it will, good question, Robin. If there is a hold, do you want me to look first to the Board of Selectmen, or would you prefer that I look first to the Warrant Committee? Usually,
It's the one.
traditionally, it's the Warrant Committee.
It'd be a great idea.
Okay.
We
Okay.
can equip Felicia with a stopwatch.
Okay,
It depends a little bit though also on what the.
Right.
Item is. So the school budgets we usually.
Sure,
go
superintendent.
straight to the
Right.
superintendent, and so-
yeah. If it's right, if it's a school budget issue, I would go to the superintendent. Although, even there, I might ask you, ask Kate or you, John, or Brooks, who's represented the liaison, to comment on that and then turn it to the superintendent, or if the superintendent is jumping up and down, I'll ask the superintendent first, but I then may ask one of you for an additional comment on that, if that's okay. And by the way, anybody who's on the front stage, the Board of Selectmen and the Warrant Committee, if you have something else that you want to voice, be sure to get my attention and I'll be happy to recognize you. Because the process of town meeting is to educate the town, and you're in the position, you're the people with the most knowledge. So by all means, let me know if you have something that you want to add. Appreciate that. Okay? All right. Article 5 will be a similar process. It's the capital budget. I'll be reading through the items. Asking for a hold with respect to any items for which people have an objection. If there are no holds, it's deemed to be approved. If there are holds, we'll proceed through the same process. I'll ask for a motion with respect to each of the items for which there was a hold. I'll then call upon the person stating the hold to state their question or objection. We'll have discussion and a vote on that item, and we'll move through each of the items for which there was a hold. Any questions on this process? Or okay, good. Now we're going to then jump from Article 5 to Article 12. I requested for a change in the order of the warrant articles because proceeding with the articles that I expect there'll be the most discussion on, to have that discussion early in the meeting will enable me to be able to determine whether we're going to be able to complete this process in one evening. The idea is that if we get to a point after we've completed the articles for which there's likely to be the most discussion, and it's 10 o'clock in the evening, I will probably say, let's go for it now to complete this, all the other articles by the end of the evening, which means likely that we'll be at the auditorium in the high school till about 11:15 or so. If, on the other hand, when 10 o'clock rolls around, if we're still in the middle of discussing one of these articles for which I can anticipate there'll be serious and quite numerous discussion, I will announce at that point that we will complete that article and then recess until the following evening so that people can get home at a fairly reasonable hour Monday night, recharge the batteries, and return Tuesday night. So the idea was that by moving these articles to the beginning, it's going to enable me to make an intelligent call about whether we can proceed to try to get this done in one evening or whether we're still going to have to punt and go to 2 evenings. And I appreciate the Board of Selectmen for agreeing with my suggestion. I think this will make the process run much more smoothly. In addition, since these articles will be considered early, everybody will still be fresh. You know, we'll still be half awake, and hopefully we won't be too cantankerous at this point. Yes, Karen?
Could you just review for us all the rules on a motion to reconsider?
Very good. I was about to get to that. Thank you. A couple of points, and I'll be discussing this in my preparatory remark, and I will also be discussing this for each of the issues for which I think that there's going to be significant debate. Every article can be subject to a motion for reconsideration until the meeting is dissolved.
There's no limit.
There's no limit. Now, I'll say that a little tongue-in-cheek, there is some limit. Now, a few years ago, somebody made a motion for reconsideration about 10 minutes after the article had been approved, and they mistakenly thought that if you considered a motion for reconsideration once, that rendered that question moot, that somebody could not then move again for a subsequent reconsideration. That is not the case. Somebody can make, or a group, or individuals can ask repeatedly for reconsiderations. According to Town Meeting Time, which is the book that we use to govern our conduct in town meeting, and copies are available in the library, I can make a determination if there are so many requests by the same individual, if there's more than one request by the same individual, if I make a determination that that is impeding the progress of the meeting and is not productive, I can rule that motion out of order. I don't expect that I'm going to have to do that in the town of Dover. I think that people have all displayed very high level of conduct, and people have not abused the system in any way. So I don't expect that it will happen, but I do have the authority. If somebody is abusing that privilege, then I will rule that it's out of order.
Can
Okay?
you go over the timelines, just so everyone knows?
Okay. Now, if the motion for reconsideration is made within a half hour of the vote, according to our town bylaws, only a majority vote is required to then move to the reconsideration. If the motion is made more than a half hour after the vote, then it's a 2/3 vote. And I will be handing out, as we did last year, Felicia has, I believe, already made copies, and I have copies here as well, so let me circulate these. If you could just distribute these. People will have a copy of the rules of conduct for the town meeting. What I tried to do is summarize the most salient rules, the rules that are most likely to arise during the course of the meeting. And if you turn over to the back page, you'll see that there's a discussion of the motion to reconsider. And you'll see that it states that if it's made within 30 minutes, it's only a majority vote. If it's made beyond 30 minutes, it's a 2/3 vote. And this can be particularly a problem if we go to a second evening. And it also can be a problem if your supporters, for whatever position that you're supporting, get up and leave thinking that they've won, or leaving thinking that it's hopeless. It's not over till it's over, in the words of Yogi Berra. And it is not going to be over until I gavel the meeting dissolved. So do not leave the meeting. Advise your supporters to not leave the meeting. And then if it does come up, we'll have hopefully the same vote that we had the first time around. But this can happen at any time, right up to the moment that I gavel the meeting.
And may I suggest that you put this on the website?
I think it is already.
If it's not, it will be.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So now, Article 12, so we'll be jumping right from Article 5 to Article 12. And Article 12 is the air conditioning for the Chickering School. I have spoken to the presenters for that. They have assured me that they will be under 10 minutes, 10 minutes or under, and they will be making a PowerPoint presentation. I'm expecting that there will be some discussion about this. Again, we'll be asking people to queue up in the front. People who are not able to queue up will hopefully be seated in that middle section. I'll be able to call on. The motion will be made by Mr. Cohn, and Mr. Hamley, Fred Hamley, will be seconding the motion with respect to the Chickering School. We'll then move to Article 19, which will be the rail trail. The motion is going to be a little bit different. Last year, it was a citizen's motion, so Kevin, you made the motion. This year, it's a selectman's motion, so the motion will be made by the warrant committee, which is customarily the case when an article is being sponsored by a town board. So Mr. Cohn will make the motion. It will be seconded by Ms. Alders, Erica Alders, and then we'll be moving to a discussion. Now, at this point, it was my thought that I would ask the moving, in this case, no longer moving party, but the proponents to first speak, to make a presentation, 10 minutes, with respect to their view about the desirability article. Then I would ask the opponents to make their presentation, and The warrant committee, John, is there any feeling, would anybody from the warrant committee want to speak after?
I don't believe we had plans.
Yeah, I didn't think so,
On
but-
this particular one, no.
Okay.
I mean, we're certainly prepared to make comments of some of it.
Right.
But no, there was no
Okay.
plan on this one.
Now, so we would have 10 minutes by the proponents, 10 minutes by the opponents, and then we would open it up for questioning. And again, if any members of the Board of Selectmen at any time wish to make a comment, would you prefer to speak before we open it up on the floor?
Oh,
And-
I'm going to be making the initial presentation.
Right. Okay, so the initial presentation, do you want to do it first, or do you want to do it after the proponents and opponents have spoken, Robin?
It's your call, it's your.
Okay,
I
well,
can do it after, the presentation that we plan to make is the facts about, the lease and the lease terms.
okay. Then I think
Might
that,
it make sense maybe just to do it first then so that we can then refer? Because I
Right.
did not put a lot of content in my presentation,
Right.
thinking that it would go first and the content
Okay.
would be there.
I think that makes a lot of sense. So, Robin, you'll go first, give the factual background.
10 minutes.
10 minutes, right? Then Kevin, and then Ralph.
Yes, sir.
You'll be making the presentation for the opponent, so then you'll go, and then we'll open it up for discussion. Now, since there'll be such a lengthy presentation laying out a lot of the facts and the arguments, I'm hoping that people who speak from the floor will not be repeating what has already been said. And if you all could talk to your supporters and just mention that to them, please ask them that if they do plan to make comments, that they make comments about new information that has not been stated or new arguments. There shouldn't be a repeat of what already has been said. And that way, I think we'll be able to move pretty quickly. The idea of giving 10 minutes to each of the parties involved is to try to avoid repetition. It's to try to have a coherent, concise presentation about what the arguments are in favor of something, what the arguments are in opposition. And then when we open it up, it's to have additional arguments or facts stated, not a repetition of what has already been said. And I can assure you that, having sat now through 30-plus town meetings, I can assure you that if people start repeating, there's a good chance that will backfire. People will start to get impatient if they feel that their time is being taken advantage of. So really important to try to move things along and not repeat the arguments or the facts.
And Jim, if I may?
Yes, sir.
Attorney Krieger from Anderson Krieger will also be available to answer any legal questions
Right.
that give.
Right. In fact, do you have anything you want to add right now? Or?
No, haven't been substantively handling the rail trail matter as I'm conflicted out, and that's why Art Krieger will be here to answer those questions.
Okay, very good. Will we have Art up on the stage also?
I was thinking he'd sit in the visitors section as is customary for our consultants and advisors, and if there are
Okay.
questions he can.
But he is town council.
He is town
so-
council. He's Steve's fill-in for
Right.
Monday night.
Right, okay. Now, the reason I asked, just wanted to confirm these town council, that then brings me to the point about when can persons who are not town registered voters speak? And the tradition in Dover has been that employees of the town can speak without a separate vote approving, and town agents such as town council can speak without having a separate vote. When we ask town council for an opinion, for example, I don't entertain a motion to allow town council to address town meeting. Our book that guides us refers to persons who are outside the town as strangers. And the book advises that in order for a stranger to speak, to address the town, there has to be a motion, and it has to be approved by the town meeting before they can speak. Now, I've had some discussions with some of you earlier about allowing high school students to speak on behalf of the rail trail, and also having a biologist speak with respect to the subsequent article on the wildlife study by those who are opposed to the rail trail. And I communicated with both of you, and after I told the first party that asked about the biologist speaking, if I have the order correct, and I explained to them the process and that it would take time, they said at that point, okay, we won't do it. And then I received a communication from somebody who was pro-rail trail about having a high school student speak. I explained to that person that if they wanted to have the high school person speak, then I was going to have to go back to the other side, because in order to be fair to both sides, if one side is going to have an outsider or a stranger speak, then the other side should know that that's happening so that they have the opportunity to do the same. I would like to resolve this now at the meeting if possible. Ideally, I would like to not have any outsiders speak, because it's the time of having a motion, having a discussion, and having a vote. And I think that you're all capable of conveying the information that would be conveyed by those persons in any event. But at the end of the day, it is up to you. And I think that it would be nice to know now, so that everybody in the room is aware of what we can expect to proceed. And let me also say that if we do decide now that we will not have outsiders speak on behalf of our causes, in my discretion as town moderator, if at the meeting somebody tries to make that motion, I will rule it out of order. I will not entertain that motion, because I think that it's only fair that people not be surprised. So let me ask you now whether you have any thoughts about it. If you like, you can discuss it and communicate with me separately. I would prefer that if you do that communication, that you also copy the leaders on the other side, so that we can have a flow of information that is enabling everybody to be aware of what's going on. Ideally, I'd like to have that decision now.
I was just going to say, Jim, would it make sense if any of the respective parties who are considering having an outside expert speak had an opportunity, a few seconds, to convey the rationale before this group took a decision, so that people could hear their perspectives
Sure,
of why they
sure.
thought they needed an expert?
And if you decide you want, that's fine. As long, the key is that everybody realizes there's going to be a delay, and they realize now that the side with whom they may disagree is going to have an outsider speak, which means they have the opportunity to have their outsider speak as well. That's
Jim,
just as a matter of fairness, yeah.
just as a side point, I would recommend using a voice vote if you are going to entertain votes to allow outside speakers, because that
Okay,
should
at the
move
town
along.
meeting, right,
Yes,
okay.
should move along quickly.
Right. That will help expedite if we use the voice vote, but still we'll have the discussion. And
Jim, if I may, is
Sure.
it a majority or is it 2/3?
it's a majority.
Thank you.
It's a majority vote. So, and but if you like, yeah, by all means, if you want to discuss that now.
Did the rail trail one?
No, we feel like we can present the rail trail. We don't
Okay.
have anyone
Okay.
present on our behalf, because of the town meeting and all the content.
Right.
We prefer to move through as quickly as possible.
Okay. And Ralph and Missy?
We're not having any strangers.
Okay, right. I have to say, I was really laughing when I was reading the Blue Book Strange. It sounds like something one of my kids would have said, But, well, I appreciate
From
that.
our perspective, we would prefer no outside.
Right. And I can say that most townspeople would prefer no outsiders as well to move these along. Well, yes, Carol?
I just, on page 12, as you know, from the public forum and the open hearing, we do have a consultant that's under contract with us from the DEP, who has presented on page 12. So,
Basically, she advocates the best practice in the state. We saw that as a third party to some extent, speaking about.
Well, it is a third, it would be a third party.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you want to have that? And in which case?
That would be our preference, but it's
don't want
we're
to
the
take a
only
lot of
ones,
time,
yeah.
she's very credible.
But I would say that we're still planning to fit within our 10 minutes. So, I mean, that wasn't changing the time.
Okay, it's not so much the 10 minutes as it is that it's going to require a separate motion, discussion, and vote. So, what you can anticipate will happen is that if you want to make the motion to allow this person to speak, I'll recognize you. You'll make the motion, it will be seconded, there will then be a discussion about this that I'll try to curtail, but, who knows, it may take on a life of its own. Then we'll have a vote. It's a majority vote, we'll have a voice vote, but I can't guarantee that we'll be able to make a call on a majority vote because it's possible we'll be in 3 separate rooms, in which case we would use the clickers. Now, the clickers, if everything's working well, and we fully expect that they will, that would be just a 30-second delay. But I anticipate that the real problem is going to be in the discussion about whether this person should be permitted or not.
We'll get back to you.
No, well, I would say, Carol, I think we would just point out that we have an expert present in the visitors.
Is she allowed to respond to questions?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, not paying
No,
respond.
because that's the same as speaking. That's the same as speaking. And,
Wasn't there reference to a consultant earlier that was going to be?
Town council.
Yeah.
town council is an agent of the town, paid for and hired by the town. That's why I was making that distinction. I mean, it's a subtle distinction.
But is this a?
This consultant is a formal grant from the state.
Contracted, the
By
town
the
signed
town.
the grant.
But it's not an employee of the town. I mean, it's an extraneous witness who's not a town registered voter or a town employee who's being brought in. Again, if you want to do it, we can do it, but then it's, you know, the other, what's fair is fair to the other side as well. And,
So any contractor hired by the town is considered a stranger?
well, the contractor is an agent of the town,
So then why, so that's why I.
but this person hasn't been retained by the town.
Yeah.
They contract.
She's a
Oh, it has been-
technical
he has been-
advisor, yeah.
Yes,
We do sign a contract with this person. It's a DEP employee.
but she's,
She's serving as a technical advisor.
And she's being paid by the town.
No.
Oh, it's a grant.
It's a technical in-kind assistance paid by the Commonwealth, but on our behalf.
Okay, and does the grant run to the town?
We're a party to it.
So the grant runs to the town and is paid by the Commonwealth on behalf of the town?
and the other and the town has a contract.
I think we're gonna have to have town council look at this then, to make a determination, whether this would be consistent with our practice.
Mr. Ramsey's got the contract.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Ramsey can share the contract.
Okay, yeah, we would like to see that, thank you. Okay, I was hoping that we could move through this pretty well, but, yeah, see, the logic is that if it's a town agent, then it's really just the town speaking on behalf of itself. And if this is set up in such a way, do you have any thoughts about this?
No, I was
Okay.
just taking notes on the assigned task.
Okay, and if somebody is not retained by the town, then it truly is an outsider. And it sounds like this may be in a gray area. I think we'll have to look at the grant and the contract to make a determination. If this person is in fact a town agent, then yes, they would be allowed to answer questions. And so that would work.
I mean, Jim, is your concern that the consultant would be advocating for one point or the other as opposed to educating?
Right. I think the tradition has been that an agent of the town is acting on behalf of the town and is therefore neutral in their approach. They're simply stating their facts and what the science is or what the law is, and they're neutral with respect to the outcome.
I don't know if that applies in all the articles. In our article, an employee of the town is actually proponent.
Yeah, well, but,
Not as a town employee, I'm assuming.
yeah.
No,
See,
as a superintendent of the streets, he's advocating for the proposal.
but he's a registered voter. Craig is a registered voter, so Craig can speak as a registered voter.
Oh, he's speaking, we have been speaking.
Is he your expert? Is he?
No.
Oh, you have another expert, okay.
Well, because he's an expert on running a transfer station.
Right.
I mean, he was part of the all-around work, all
Right.
crafting.
This is for page to throw, okay.
But I think, you know, this consultant from the state
Yeah.
has been working with the highway department in helping them
not only the pay-as-you-throw, but there's also been some other reorganization.
Okay,
They've been
okay.
providing advice for at least a year.
Yeah, so, this person's expertise
Right.
is transfer stations.
Okay.
This is just one aspect of it.
And this is solely pertaining to the pay-as-you-throw?
Right.
Okay,
You can look back
So-
at, if you look back at the tape from the open hearing,
right.
she spoke then, she's basically.
But that's a different set of rules.
No, I understand that,
Yeah,
but you want
right.
a sense of what.
Right.
what
No, I was at the
what
open
was-
hearing, I saw her speak, right.
Will she be speaking as an advocate or as an educator?
As an educator.
She's speaking on best practices.
Let me take a look at the contract and the grant just to make sure. I think that the fact that she's retained by the town, if it's clear that the grant runs in effect for the benefit of the town and she's been retained on behalf of the town, then I think that we might be able to allow her to speak consistent with our prior practice. I also take some consolence in this, or I have some confidence about this, because this is not an issue for which there's an organized, well, there is actually. Warrant Committee is going to be making a presentation as well. So let me strike that from the record. Let us look at this and we'll make a determination. And if you could leave all your email addresses with Felicia before you leave so that we can contact you. And and then when we get back to the pay-you-throw, we'll talk about it a little bit more, because James, I know you were going to be making a presentation as well. Okay, but with respect to the rail trail, are we agreed by all sides that we are not going to have any outsiders, or as the Blue Book says, strangers speak, the town meeting time Blue Book? Okay, fine. Everybody comfortable with that? Okay, very good. Then moving on to Article 19. I'm expecting that, 20, I mean, I'm expecting that we'll have a motion to dismiss for this, is that correct? Or-
Yes.
Okay, so this will be dismissed. Mr. Ban will make the motion, and Mr. Moss will second, and we'll have a very quick vote on that one. Article 21 will be the wildlife study. Mr. Louis will be making a motion. This is a private citizen's petition, so Mr. Louis will be making a motion. Mr. Rappello will be seconding. Who will be making a presentation on behalf of the wildlife study? Mr. Louis? Okay, very good. So we'll call on you, Mr. Louis. There'll be a 10-minute presentation. Will you have any outside? No. Okay, so it will just be, you're making a presentation, and then are there any organized opponents who would like to make a presentation? Okay.
Yeah, Mark Healy.
Okay, Mark Healy. Okay, and again, it will be the same 10-minute rule for each. And I have agreement from both parties that there will be no outsider.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Okay, after you've made the presentation, there will be, anybody from the Warrant Committee or the Board of Selectmen, would you like to comment on this one? No?
I have a statement. I just have a question. I think
Okay.
there's been a misunderstanding with the write-up from the Warrant Committee with regards to this article. So it looks to me that the Warrant Committee feels that the Friends of the Greenway are building the rail trail when they're really just the fundraisers of the rail trail. So the Warrant Committee voted not to recommend the article because the cost should be borne by the project proponent, not the town. Okay, so that's kind of okay, I guess, the Friends of the Greenway, the project proponent. But then, as part of the due diligence and permitting process, the Friends of the Greenway will be required to submit a notification. So it's my understanding that if this passes, it becomes a town project, and the Friends of the Greenway don't submit environmental notifications. It would be the town that submits it as part of their project, that they're building the rail trail.
That is correct.
Okay, so I don't know,
This is misstated.
so it's misstated, it's a little misleading in here that it looks like the Friends of the Greenway build the trail. And when we put forth the petition and we were asking the town to raise money, we wrote accepted gifts, which covers that if the town deemed it appropriate for the Friends of the Greenway to include this in their fundraising, they would, as part of the memorandum of understanding. But the warrant committee appears to, I don't know, it just looks like the warrant committee believes that the Friends of the Greenway build the trail, but it's a town project, and the Friends
Well,
fundraise for it.
the warrant committee, no, it doesn't, do not believe that.
Okay.
We understand that, as I hear you speaking, I understand, in terms of the wording of it.
Yeah, I
Right.
think
But
the
that
wording is
had
confusing.
nothing to do with the discussion amongst the warrant committee. We're fully aware of the mechanisms as to, the separation between the fundraising and who's responsible.
So do you think we could explain that?
I think there should be some clarification at town meeting once you begin the discussion of that because of the way the blue book is worded. It's very confusing.
But I'm a little confused by that. So you're saying that this would mean that the proponents was misstated, it's the town that's going to do it. But since we're fundraising, we would have to raise funds for this?
Well, we don't know how the town feels about it, because
Possibly yes, possibly no, depending on how
Because-
the vote on it.
because the basis of the argument is that it's in the master plan. So when we were in one meeting with the Board of Selectmen, we had this discussion, I don't know if you were here though, and Candace was saying if it's part of the master plan, it might be important that the town funds it as part of the town's, that's what they do, ecosystem maps.
Right.
And then we had a discussion that should it be paid for by the Friends of the Greenway because it's part of their project. I don't know what the town wants to do about that. I just don't like the wording that says that the Friends of the Greenway are going to file any notifications, because I don't think they're doing that. I think the town's doing all kinds of notifications, and you're fundraising for the project.
But doesn't it matter, I get that, but doesn't it matter, doesn't the town need to know whether or not they're paying for it, or whether or not, how?
So I
How
think
that's
that,
going to be.
so the warrant committee has recommended that they don't want town funds used for it.
Okay.
Okay? Do we know how the collective town feels about that? I don't know. That's what town meeting's for. What do the citizens think? Should we do the study and then the Board of Selectmen determine later if they pay for it or if it's
But
part
I thought
of
if
the
you raised an
fundraising?
article, you have to appropriate where the funds come from.
Right, that's, I was just about to jump in
Right,
there.
so-
That we need to talk
Right.
about the motion language.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So we're working on the motion language, but this part started the confusion for us.
Yeah, and then just the other piece of that was, I was here tonight, we discussed the Friends potentially paying for it.
Yeah.
But since you decided that you were gonna carry 21 forward regardless of what happened with 19,
Well, we didn't know that night. If 19 passes, right, we'll ask for the study to be done. If we're in a conundrum though, because, I don't know, we haven't fully discussed if we're gonna pull it or not.
Okay,
Because-
so
Right,
maybe,
so we're working on the motion, I guess.
yeah, I guess maybe to cut the Gordian knot, the real question is going to be in how the motion is phrased.
Correct.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I received some language earlier today through Greer, who's in the back there, and do have some suggested changes, so
we're
I,
gonna meet tomorrow to discuss
okay,
that.
I think I need to be part of that discussion if
Right,
possible.
that's what Greer said.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
This just came in this afternoon.
okay, so
And
Greer,
so we're going to have a conference call tomorrow, sometime
Okay.
before noon. I have to-
okay, so Greer, it will be,
Preferably early.
right, it will be Greer and Missy.
Yeah.
And Nina, and also will Kevin be included in the discussion as well, or do you want to just deal with it?
well, I mean, if the thought is that the Friends of the Dover Greenway is gonna pay for this, that was not our
That is
understanding
not our understanding.
at all. We understood that the folks who put the article forward were going to ask for town funding.
Okay.
And the conversation that we had around that was, we're going to follow through with this regardless of what happens to 19, meaning if 19 gets voted down, they would move forward with 21 and therefore fund it. And so there's a disconnect there. We don't have an intention of paying.
Because if the real trail gets voted down,
Yeah.
we're not raising money for
Right.
anything.
And just to be clear, even if the motion is to accept gifts to pay for this, that doesn't in any way legally obligate the Friends to pay for it. It purely authorizes the town to accept gifts to pay for it. So It's not, it wouldn't be putting you directly on the hook in any way for that.
Ralph, Peter?
The draft motion provided three possibilities for funding. One was for the town to raise and appropriate. The second option was for transfer, and the third was to accept gifts. So it's not guaranteed, but we didn't say that it automatically had to be a gift received from the Friends of the Green.
But at the time of town meeting, you need to determine how it's going to be funded. Town meeting needs to vote on the funding allocation.
I said it was a draft motion, that's why we need to talk about it.
Okay, I think it's really important that we have open communication channels here. I would suggest that, that Greer, that you meet with the moving party, because it's their motion, and town council to discuss the language that they want to use for the motion, and so they can be approved by town council. Then Greer, if you could communicate that to Kevin, so that that they will have a chance to respond to the new language, I think that would be helpful, because it's very important that we not have any surprises on Monday evening. I want to make sure that everybody feels that they've had an opportunity to think about the presentations that they're going to make and the positions that they're going to take.
Just one, I guess I'm just concerned about delay too. I mean, it says if you're gonna raise money, I don't know what that time frame is. Maybe there could be something along the lines of, the town being reimbursed, paying for it and then being reimbursed by funds. I just don't want to see this become a protracted process whereby we're waiting for a study to be funded through funds, if there's not a time frame there.
There is a time frame in there proposed.
So we're not asking, we are definitely sure that the motion will include that this study can be done during the due diligence phase or the licensing agreement. We're not trying to have it done as the article states prior to development, prior to signing anything. Because when we met with all of the different committees, they didn't feel that was the right way to do it. That if we go forward with the study, it should be during, if there's a licensing agreement signed by the selectmen or there's a due diligence phase, it would be incorporated during that time period. We're not trying to hold up the process.
But all of these details will be worked out through the motion drafting and sharing of information. Can't be done here tonight.
Yeah, because I prepared the counter argument dependent upon coming from tax money.
I think that as soon as Greer and council and the moving party have had a chance to agree on language, that Greer will communicate that to you all. Make sure Greer also has your email address, so you'll have a chance to prepare your commentary on it as well. Really important, and Greer and Dave are expert at this and making sure that there's a good flow of communication among everybody. And again, my role is to make sure that there are no surprises. I want to make sure that everybody feels like they've had an equal opportunity to make their arguments. Okay? So if you feel like you're having an issue, call me as well. Feel free to send me an email. But I don't think there'll be an issue. Greer and Dave and town council are truly remarkable workers and individuals. So.
Do you think that the warrant committee can just clear up this part?
Let's say, if it's a long line of people who would like us to reword our commentaries. As you can imagine, I do understand what you're saying. This is just one individual, one member of one. I'm not sure that it's a matter of, I'm not sure exactly how that impacts the argument for or against, myself, that the way this is worded. But again, I'm not sure that's an interesting precedent, to have the warrant committee kind of reword Blue Book.
I agree. I think that, Missy, it would be better if you ask a question to the warrant committee about the phrasing so that you could draw attention to it. And I think you could either do that in the course of your comments on the article, or if you like, I will be sure to call on you separately after your 10 minutes so that you won't have to use the 10 minutes for that, because it technically is a little bit outside the scope of what I would expect as a normal presentation. So let me know which you would prefer to do, okay? All right, moving on now to pay as you throw, Article 22. So we will pin down, we'll take a look at the grants, we'll take a look at the contract. I thought early discussion, I thought you were talking about one of the earlier articles, the rail trail. That's why I was confused about the expert that you were referring to. I suspect that we'll be able to resolve this pretty quickly tomorrow, and we'll get back to you to let you know. But if in fact it's clear, if the flow of authority is clear where it's a grant on behalf of the town, and the town is retaining this person to engage in the study and is being paid by a grant, it looks to me like it's an agency. We'll just need to confirm that. Okay. Any other comments on question 22? Ms. Canning will be making a motion. Ms. Kilbody, Kathy Kilbody will be seconding the motion. With respect to the presentations now, traditionally the moving party would be making the first presentation, so who will that be, Carol?
That would be, yes, Chris.
Okay. Chris will do that.
There's actually 3 parties to that, all within 10 minutes.
Okay. If you could send me the names of the other 2 parties, email me that. That would be great, because that way we'll be able to make sure that it operates pretty smoothly. Okay. And then after that, the warrant committee has a majority and a minority view on this item, and they have asked to make a presentation of the majority and minority view. And at the warrant committee meeting the other night, they assured me that this can be done very quickly and concisely. So I will turn to the warrant committee to make the majority perspective, to simply summarize it. It's in the blue book, so people can read it, and there'll be a brief summary of the reason for the majority view, and then there'll be a brief summary of the minority view, which is also in the blue book, which people can read in anticipation of the meeting. After we have had the presentations by the warrant committee, we will then open it up for discussion.
Is there any known opponent?
Other than the view of the warrant committee, of one group of the warrant committee, I'm not aware of any other opponents. Okay, moving on then, after we've done this will be the point that hopefully will be 10 o'clock. And then we'll try to race through everything else in order to get through in one evening. We'll be moving to Article 6 to be dealing with funds for the unemployment compensation fund. Ms. Gilwani will make the motion, Mr. Stewart will second. Usually there's very little discussion on that. We'll then be moving to Article 7 to see if the town will vote to appropriate funds for accumulated sick leave for retired police officers. Usually that also moves very quickly. And Mr. Hammerly will be making a motion, and Ms. Cherico will be seconding. We'll then move to revolving funds account, the traditional revolving funds article. Mr. Peterson will make the motion, Ms. Gilbody will second. We should be able to move through that very quickly. Article 9 will involve another aspect of the revolving funds with respect to Building Department, Board of Health, Library, and Council on Aging. And Mr. Stewart will make the motion, and we'll have a second by Mr. Peterson. Yes.
I'm going to move back to Article 8. Article 8 is actually with respect to the revolving fund. It's not the typical revolving fund. It's adopting what you typically do on an annual basis as a general bylaw, given changes from the Municipal Modernization Act. So this Article 8 is a one-time bylaw approval, and then Article 9 is the typical revolving fund limits.
Now, we won't be doing an Article 8 type motion every year?
Correct.
Okay.
You will be doing the limits every year.
Okay, well.
But this is adopting the bylaw.
Okay.
I understand it's in hopes of streamlining things, they've added an article on a one-time basis where there is usually just one article every year, so.
Okay, so this will be adopted by law, but we will be doing the limits every year.
Correct.
And is this a majority vote or a two-thirds?
Majority.
So it's a majority vote, okay, thank you. Okay, Article 9 then will be our usual revolving bylaw. Mr. Stewart will be making a motion, and Mr. Peterson will be seconding. Article 10 will be question with respect to the annual town report. Ms. Alders will be making a motion, Ms. Gilbine will be second. And Kathy, will you want to speak to this at all?
After all the speaking that's gone before, probably not, but if they have questions, they could ask, and I'll answer them.
I think it might be helpful if you just briefly explain what is motivating this.
Okay.
If that would be okay? All right, very good. Thank you.
10 minutes max.
Okay, Article 11 will be $25,000 for the Conservation Fund to be used by the Conservation Commission. Ms. Cherico will be making the motion. Ms. Gurnan will be seconding. And will there be any, does Concom want to make any, or do you want to?
I'm happy to just
Okay.
explain it. It's a repeat of several years that we have reestablished that fund, and this is our annual wish.
I think that would be helpful, just to lay the foundation. Thank you. Okay, Article 12 will, I'm going back to Article 8. Who should summarize then what Article 8 is doing? Would you like to do that, Nina?
Sure.
Okay, so I'll turn to you to summarize Article 8.
I'm sorry, who's summarizing?
Nina.
Town
Town
council.
Council. Thanks.
No problem.
Okay, good. Then moving on to Article 13, appropriation of funds from free cash with respect to the capital equipment and improvements for the regional school. Ms. Gilbine will be making the motion. Ms. Canny will be seconding. Who will be speaking to this on behalf of the regional school committee? If anybody, or was somebody from the Board of Selectmen be speaking? Is there nobody? Who should we refer questions to?
It came through capital budgets, but I can contact the regional school committee and ask them if somebody.
Okay, just in case any questions
Right,
arise?
it's just their standard.
Right, right.
I will certainly, and I'll email.
Okay.
Great, thanks.
James?
This needs to be confirmed, but I think it will be the chair of the capital budget committee.
Chair of the capital budget committee, okay.
Confirm that.
Okay. Well, we
I will contact everyone.
Okay.
I'm on the capital budget, so I
Okay.
will contact everyone.
Okay. And Robin, if you could, as you always do, send an email to the warrant committee and to me. Thank you, that would be great. Thanks for taking that on. Okay, Article 14. Article 14 is a motion with respect to the regional school committee. We're going to dismiss it. Is there a motion to dismiss? Mr. Stewart will make the motion, and Ms. Gurnan will second. Article 15 is also a capital budget committee motion that we will have a motion to dismiss by Mr. Peterson and a second by Ms. Cherico. I should add that these motions to dismiss have already been approved by the parties that are involved, so that it's not in any way stepping on anybody's toes with respect to what they were seeking. They've agreed that these items should be dismissed. The planning board is seeking an amendment with respect to a zoning bylaw entitled signs. Ms. Gilbine will be making the motion. Ms. Gurnan will be seconding. And I think Mark will be making a presentation for this. Is that right, Carol? Okay. And this will require a 2/3 vote, just so we're aware of that. Article 17 will refer to the acceptance by the town of the town cemetery commission of a conveyance of land. That was actually made a number of years ago. I am an abutter of the town, of the property that's being conveyed, so I'm going to have to recuse myself. Mr. White will be handling the motion. And Mr. White, after Mr. Hamley makes the motion and Mr. Cohn seconds, Dave Ramsey has kindly agreed to explain the history of how we got to this point and what's involved with the vote. Okay, so then Mr. White will conduct the vote, and then I will resume again as moderator on Article 18. And this will be the Springdale Avenue. The motion will be made by Ms. Gurney, it will be seconded by Mr. Stewart. This will be a two-thirds vote since it involves the conveyance of property by the town. And Ken, are you going to make a brief presentation on this subject?
I'll have a presentation, and at what point do we make it apparent that this very last paragraph is not part of the motion? In other words, we are not holding money out, we are not intending to do anything about a septic system. So at some point, shall I just include that in my presentation?
I think it's not in the
It's not-
motion.
It's in the,
So it's
it's
already
taken out of the
Oh,
motion.
right, very good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
But you know, I think Candace, it would be helpful if you call people's attention to
All
that.
right.
Explain to them that the motion does not include the septic system,
All right.
because the town does not intend to pay for that.
Thank you.
Okay, that would be great, thank you. Is there any other group that wishes to speak to this that you're aware of, or?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
James, John, anyone from Warren wants to speak, or?
Well, I believe it was unanimous. It was unanimous
Yes.
support of it, so
Okay.
typically we wouldn't.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So Candace, you'll just be making the presentation, and we'll open it up for comments from the floor, and then we'll move to the vote. Right, this will be a two-thirds vote. We have an alternative motion citing Article 97 of the Massachusetts Constitution. Greer or Dave, do you want to explain?
There was some question whether the proponents wanted to craft the motion to specifically cite Article 97 of the Massachusetts Constitution or not. Council has opined that really doesn't make any legal distinction, but if there's a preference to do that, then we could use that motion instead.
No legal distinction, meaning where we have stated that it's being transferred for conservation purposes, that automatically grabs it and puts it under the control of Article 97 without the specific reference. But if folks, there was some thought that folks might be more comfortable with a specific reference to Article 97.
Right, our goal is to get this through, so if it got stopped in a discussion at this point, then I think this was the wisdom of having an alternate motion available. But as long as you can explain, or I can explain convincingly that it's going to fall under technically Chapter 97 anyway, Article 97, we're good to go.
Okay, so we'll go with the initial motion rather than the alternate? Okay, thank you. Is there any wisdom with just doing the alternate if you're expecting them to make you a question, so they don't have to go through the form of amending the motion?
The
I
other
would say time.
aspect is from a historical purpose, the problem is if you look back at these things later and you miss the nuances. So if it doesn't say Article 97, 10 years from now, somebody might be looking back and what does conservation mean? Is it Article 97 or isn't it?
There's certainly some wisdom in that, and that's a point that Dave has brought up a number of times in the past week.
I think that because of the timing issue we're having at this meeting, that if we can eliminate the possibility of somebody making a motion to amend the article, we should do that. Because amending an article is an awkward, cumbersome process, it will take a lot of time. So unless, Candace, you think that that's not a wise decision,
No, we've duplicated language that's been successfully used at Wildwoods and other places in town.
Correct.
However,
It's solely the addition of saying, subject to the provisions of Article 97 of the Massachusetts Constitution. I mean, that's the
And
only
it's not
difference.
going to tie up the process. Okay, excellent.
So go with the alternative
I'm good
motion?
with that.
Okay.
I think it will remove the opportunity for an amendment, which would be great. Now, Brooks, when you're making a motion, then you'll be making this alternate motion. It's on page 31 of the articles script. It has,
Not everybody has the alternative motion. We try to minimize confusion. We will make sure people get it.
okay, great, thank you. So, Brooks, look for an email from Dave or Greer with respect to the alternate motion. And if we could also have an email go to the other members of the warrant committee with that language as well, so that everybody will be on board. Okay, that'd be great. Good, thank you. Okay, Article 23. This is the solar photovoltaic generating facility question.
It's the pilot program, so it's the new.
Right, so Ms. Alders will be making a motion, Ms. Gurney will be seconding. Robin, will you be discussing this, or?
There's nothing really to discuss, I can just say what it is.
Okay. Now, if somebody has a question, is there somebody that we should refer the questions to?
I can start.
Okay.
And I can jump in to the extent needed.
Okay.
And the assessors, you know, it was a joint effort between the board of selectmen, the assessors, and
Okay.
Anderson's council, so.
Okay, so it'll be
It's pretty straightforward.
so Robin and council for questions. Okay.
Robin, I'll just look to you for any specific questions about the transaction in the negotiations, because I haven't been directly involved in that, but as far as the reasons for the agreement, the legal requirements, I can certainly speak to that,
Okay.
if that makes sense to you.
Okay, and in the same sort of vein, moving to Article 24, it's a vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into a power purchase agreement or a net metering credit or renewable energy agreement for terms up to 20 years. And Ms. Cherico will make the motion. Mr. Hamley will second, sorry.
Wow.
Yeah. I thought I turned it off. I had left it on because my sister is hospitalized, so I wanted to, I apologize, so. Okay, Article 24, so this will be authorizing the Board of Selectmen to enter into a renewable energy agreement or a power purchase agreement. Ms. Cherico will be making a motion, Mr. Hamley will be seconding. Again, if there are any questions about this, should we refer to you, Robin,
So
or?
this is not to enter into a specific agreement?
Right,
It's just
just-
to allow us to enter into such agreements?
Right.
And it came up when we were negotiating the net metering agreement.
Right.
We were unable to enter, the town was unable to enter into it. So
Could
this
you
would-
make that comment to the
Yes,
town?
certainly.
That would be great. If you would be able to just explain that to the town, because I don't think
It's
it's,
2 minutes or less, right? So many towns already have this ability, which was why they were able to enter into these.
Right. Great. So, and then I think with that explanation, it should move through pretty quickly. Okay, Article 25, to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept any easement or other interest for purposes of maintaining the town's closed and capped landfill.
I can talk to that as well.
You want to speak to that as well? Okay, Robin. Is this a majority vote or a 2/3 vote?
Or to accept the easement, if there's no appropriation, it's just majority.
Okay, there's no consideration, so,
Right.
okay.
And this was basically to paper an agreement that's been in place for
Okay.
over 40 years now.
Okay. There may be some questions about this as well, so.
Right, and,
Right.
you know, as part of negotiating
Right.
the solar array, it came out that there was not an official.
Okay, good.
It's just getting housekeeping.
Great, thank you. Article 26, transfer from available funds pursuant to Chapter 40. The motion will involve a sum of $250,000 to be appropriated from a reserve fund for fiscal year 2018 to provide for extraordinary or unforeseen expenditures pursuant to Chapter 40. Mrs. Gurner will make the motion, Ms. Cherico will second. Usually we don't have any discussion of this, but just in case, who should we be looking to?
Go for a clean sweep, Robin, come on.
No, this is not select, I'm kidding.
This is the warrant committee.
All right,
I don't want to take away their time.
all right.
James, that's you?
James, you want to be?
No, Kate, because she's not
Okay,
here.
All
okay.
right, good.
We're gonna-
Since she's not here.
She's watching on TV.
All right. Article 27. We have to,
We have unpaid bills.
I'm sorry?
Yes, unpaid bills.
Yeah. Article 27, we need to pay an unpaid bill. When this happens, it requires a 4/5 vote, but with the clickers, that should be a quick vote. Otherwise, we would definitely have had to move to a standing count on this.
Oh, boy.
Unless it was unanimous. So we'll be saving time there. with Article 28.
Excuse
This
me,
article,
Jim, so you're not going to ask for a roll call vote first? You're gonna
I'm sorry?
Are you going to write to?
I'm going to go right to the clicker.
Because we have these very,
But
very often.
remember, Carol, this is going to be in
rooms.
3 rooms. And by the time that I communicate with the assistant moderators in each of the rooms to confirm what the vote was there,
It'll be a lot more than 20
it can be
seconds.
more than 20 seconds. And also remember that since this is a 4/5 vote, if anybody is voicing objection, we have to try to guesstimate what the quantum of that objecting vote was to make a determination.
And then we have to do some math.
All right.
Yeah, you weigh the rooms.
Way above my $0. Okay. Right. So,
I'll cover you on that part.
so,
You got the 80%.
so we'll move to, so that will be, we'll have a quicker vote. Article 28, to make supplemental appropriations, the article motion to be dismissed. We'll vote on that. Article 29, to see if the town will transfer from free cash an amount to be designated. Now, this may require some discussion. The warrant committee was discussing this the other night. Mr. Stewart will make the motion, Ms. Canny will be seconding. James, are you going to explain the number, or John? How should we proceed with this? Do you want to make any preparatory remarks, John or James, or?
I think the plan is to have an introduction to it on Article 4, where we discuss the budget, because
Okay.
we do talk about free cash there. And
Okay.
so we'll have a preview. We could actually have the full discussion there, but I think that it might be, I think it's still to be determined as to whether we have a discussion
Okay.
at this point, because it will be,
It'd be very late.
it would be late, but also it would be a time for people to focus on this question.
Right.
So, what would be your preference?
I think whatever you feel is best, in the best interest of the town. You know, in the warrant committee, you spent a lot of time working on the budget, trying to determine what this figure should be. I know you've given it a lot of thought. If people have to sit an extra 3 minutes to listen to an explanation that you think would be helpful, fine. If you think that you can cover enough of it in your introductory remarks with respect to Article 4, that's fine as well. I'll leave it to your judgment.
We'll let you know.
Okay, okay. Because I view an important role of the warrant committee is to educate the town. And that's what you're doing with your comments in the blue book. I'd like to leave it to your judgment to decide what you want to do here. All right, Article 30 will be dismissed. And then if we're all still standing, we'll have a motion to dissolve the meeting, and that will be the end. And as you can see, we have quite a challenge before us to get through this quickly. And I would like to thank all the parties for agreeing not to have strangers speak. That will save us a lot of time, because it will save us 2 additional votes as well as 2 additional debates. With respect to the pay to throw, we'll make a determination. From what I'm hearing, it sounds like it will be a favorable one, because it looks like it's a town agent. I just want to make sure we dotted the i's and crossed the t's. Everybody last town meeting was very respectful. I expect that tradition to continue. As I constantly state, we can disagree without being disagreeable. We're a small town, and I think that people in this town are very capable of rising to the occasion. So thank you very much. Yes,
Jim,
Carol.
just one thing. Is Article 31 correct? No. So might it be worthwhile to mention that Article 31 will not be reflected?
Article 31 is not in our book.
Corrected appropriately on the ballot.
The election ballot?
The election ballot, just so people don't get confused if they're looking at the blue book versus the ballot 2 weeks later.
So they picked up a prior version, Jim, so there are some incorrect things in there.
Okay. So,
Some of the items are incorrect, some of them are still valid.
in Article 31.
In Article 31, that is who's up for voting in town offices. what positions. And it's possible we could put a handout, we could make that available to everybody at the entrance of the meeting, but that would work.
I guess there's a question whether would be within the scope of the warrant article. Is there going to be an issue with that, Nina? Okay.
And the election warrant went out to everybody's home anyway, or will go out to everybody's
No,
home.
it hasn't gone out, and it's correct, the
Okay.
warrants are posted everywhere, everything is correct, so I think people know what they're really
Okay.
dealing with.
We'll need a copy of the motion for the moderator and the assistant moderators. It's not in our book.
Well, it's just the article, there's no motion.
There will be no
Article
motion?
31. It's just
Okay,
about.
okay.
If there are questions, James, is that you? If it's someone,
Defer to the chair, I think you can.
okay.
Okay,
She'll be prepared.
all right. All right, any other comments or questions? Thank you for your patience, and, yes, Melissa?
I just have one statement that I really need to make. One of the things that's going to make the clickers work or not work is that we get them back. So if you could encourage everybody, to please deposit them, we'll be there, we're moving around, try to get them, but please encourage people not to take them home. Thanks. Not you did.
They won't work on your TV sets.
I know, I tried, no, I didn't try.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very, very much. If you have any questions or comments, don't feel any reluctance at all to contact me.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a little later than 7 p.m. But we did have a lot to cover in the moderators meeting, and hopefully that will make town meeting go more smoothly. So I'm assuming we cut an hour off the time.
At least.
At least, all right. So this evening, we have a full agenda on our agenda, and I'm going to start with a review of the warrant articles. We did go over them in detail at our meeting, and I have gotten some questions about some of the more meaty or the warrant articles that have been moved up. So I thought maybe as a board, we could have a quick discussion on those, and if we feel that it's appropriate, we could vote on them, or we could just express our position on some of these warrant articles. So I think as far, does that work for you?
It's fine.
Okay. So, the first one is Article 12, which is the funding for the air conditioning at the Chickering School. As sitting on capital budgets, this is not something that has just come up. The school committee has done a lot to try and find ways to mitigate the heat issues at Chickering. As part of the initial design, it was cut out at the last minute. And similar to what happened at the middle school, the buildings weren't redesigned. So the buildings were designed for air conditioning. You don't have windows that open, the air doesn't flow, and the classrooms do get really hot. I felt that a compelling argument was made. I feel as though they could probably make their argument in one slide, the one with all the red, but showing the temperatures. They did an excellent job looking at various systems, getting the costs down dramatically. We really owe a lot, once again, to Dover citizens who stepped in, who had the expertise in HVAC, stepped in free of charge as consultants to the school committee. And I know their input was invaluable. And that came from a discussion with a member on the recycling committee, Janet Greenwood, who said, my husband is in HVAC and he offered these services. So thank you, Barry. So as you know, my position is they made a very compelling argument, and it's supported. I do feel just like at the middle school, it's warranted to have air conditioning in those buildings. It's not a handful of days, it's weeks at the shoulder seasons, at the beginning of school, and again at the end of school.
I agree.
I agree.
So do we want to vote on these things?
I'm happy to vote on this.
Okay. All right, then I will make a motion in our support of air conditioning at the Chickering School in the amount of $675,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And thank you to the capital budgets in
Right.
Chickering. The next item on the agenda, which is item 19, which is actually our warrant article. As people recall, last year there was a discussion on the rail trail and what town meeting voted on, because citizens have asked, why are we voting on this again? So we're not voting on it again. What we voted on, or what the motion was last year, was for the selectmen to begin to negotiate a lease with the MBTA and to bring back the terms of that lease to town meeting for a vote. We have been trying, or have been in the process of negotiating a lease with the MBTA since September. We worked on the summer to figure out the parameters of that lease. The MBTA is a giant organization. We have never actually talked directly to the MBTA. They put us in touch with their consultants, and we have been working with their lease consultant on negotiating the lease. What we have done as an alternate motion is we have parameters for a lease. We have the standard MBTA lease, which was the lease that we started with, and then we have a red line version of that lease, which was for various terms that we asked the MBTA for. We had some pushbacks, and where we are right now is we're still waiting for the MBTA to finalize some of those items. So we do have parameters. The one item that is a non-starter for us, and it is part of the motion, is that if the MBTA comes back and says that we have to lease the entire rail bed, and we cannot lease what we deem to be the lease premises, which is from the center of town to Hunt, we walk away. And this is the understanding of the town, the Friends of the Dover Greenway, and everybody involved. Other than that, the other items we've asked for, most are nice to haves, and I would expect there to be some additional negotiation with the MBTA. So what we are asking town meeting for is to allow us to continue to negotiate the lease, but we are providing town meeting with parameters of both extremes of that lease. So that's what the motion is. My feeling is that what the decision that is made at town meeting is the one that I will, as a member of the Board of Selectmen, follow through on. So if town meeting votes no, we walk away, we're done negotiating. If town meeting votes yes, we will continue to try and negotiate a lease. We have been authorized to do that. As a board, we have discussed with town council what would be deemed to be substantially different. They would be helping us make that decision. And if we do come to terms with the MBTA, if town meeting authorizes us, I would be in favor of signing a lease.
My position is exactly the same as it was last year. I am interested in the terms of the lease and how the townspeople feel about it, so I'm looking for 2 data points. I'm looking for the vote on Article 19, and I'm also looking for the vote at the ballot, because I'd like to get as much information as I possibly can from the townspeople about how they feel about our signing the lease. I'm still as interested as I was a year ago. So for the moment, without those 2 data points, I will abstain.
We don't need to vote as
No,
a...
we don't need to vote. It's
Yeah.
just the town citizens are interested in our positions. You can say your position, if you have one.
I do. It's similar to yours in the sense that I believe we've been given the directive from town meeting, and town meeting is the governing body. So I too, Candace, I'm very interested in the election, the voting in the voting booth, but I also think that the way that we've set up town meeting this year with the electronic clickers is going to be a very definitive type of a vote. So I think that sort of, for me, changes I don't view the election question as favorably as I would had we not had the clicker part. I think that's a very important part for this year's vote. So please, to the citizens of Dover, get to the town meeting early and stay until the end. Pack a lunch.
Breakfast.
Breakfast, yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Article 20 is going to be dismissed, so we don't have anything to discuss there. Article 21 is regarding I believe the sponsors are requesting that, and as you probably know more about this than I do, they're requesting a wildlife study.
Right, and it was born out of the Open Space Master Plan from 2011, where indeed it was begun to be talked about that Dover had never had an extensive wildlife flora fauna study done. And I think that I've heard some pretty compelling arguments thanks to Ms. Chirico at Warrant, who was able to show that whomever is applying for the plan with the MBTA as far as moving ahead with the rail trail will be required to include an impact study. And it was interesting in the discussion at the moderators meeting, we just didn't get into all of that, but that was partly the reason. My understanding was that Warrant took the position that it did, was that theoretically that study was going to happen in another form. So I believe, as far as what the townspeople hear and whether they want to push ahead with the wildlife study, the impact study down this section of the railroad bed will be up to the townspeople. And it is an interesting question. If in fact we chose not to go ahead with the rail trail, if it were a no on 19 and a no on the ballot question, and it all sort of stopped at this particular point, it might be something down the road that we would circle back to and look for a more comprehensive study, really, of the entire town. So maybe in a sense this would be something the townspeople would opt not to support for the reason we said that it would be a part of the application and that it really is not in the spirit of what 2011's master plan was suggesting, which was a town-wide study. But that's the best explanation I can make.
That's an excellent explanation, and actually it reminds me that when I was involved in the field at the region, the turf field there, that an impact study had to be done. And we actually, when we were looking at placement of the fields, the consultant, Mr. McManus, let us know that there was a rare species of rabbit that lives on Farm Street, and you have to be really careful with respect to placement of the turf field. And really, that was the only area where the field could be put in place. So we do, I know from experience, it is just part of our process as a town when we look to construct either trails or fields or buildings. Do you have an opinion?
No. Not that I don't have an opinion. I'm perfectly satisfied with all of the parts we've covered so far.
I don't feel a need to vote.
No, I don't. I mean, it's up to you, but I don't feel a need to vote.
I think we all agree this would be included.
I'm practicing what Mr. Repetti was preaching earlier.
Brevity?
Brevity.
So then the last...
Less is more.
Right,
Right,
the
Jim?
last item that's probably worthy of well, the second to last item, that's what the discussion, is the pay-as-you-throw. So we, as a board, have been somewhat involved in this. I believe it was in the spring last year where the recycling committee came to us with their goal to try and increase recycling in the town of Dover. And we talked about various outreach that they could do. We talked about pay-as-you-throw. I believe they had the consultant come and talk to us. Mr. Hughes was really involved in the process. And then they came back in the fall, and I went to a few of the open hearings. And I personally find the data to be compelling. I think an even more compelling argument to me is Mr. Hughes, who came up to me and said, I was not a believer. They took me kicking and screaming to view transfer stations, and this could work. And if it doesn't work, we'll stop doing it. And that seemed like a very common sense approach to me. So for me, as one who recycles everything, and it's just part of who I am and part of what we do at home, and having read a few studies not only about trash but about water as well, there is a correlation that's made between having to pay for something and increasing the rate of conservation. So I am in favor of giving pay-as-you-throw a try.
I am as well. I think also to the extent we spoke earlier in your meeting, Mr. Repetti, that reflecting upon, I hope that we can get an answer with regards to the outside speaker and the speaker for pay-as-you-throw being an employee of the town or that connection. An agent, I'm sorry.
A non-stranger.
A non-stranger.
All I see is those bear books, you know, those we read to kids about strangers. That's all I can think of.
Oh God. Well, that I think for the sake of all the things that you described earlier, that having that type of insight from a person who's been charged as the town's representative to give a very brief overview of it, I think would be helpful, and I hope that you can come to that conclusion, or you can reach that conclusion for us, so we'll know.
Once again, I imagine I'm going to be an outer liar. The issue is an interesting one. I think that in a town where recycling is in fact voluntary, what we're really talking about is changing the law so that recycling can no longer theoretically be quite so voluntary, because it'll be costly if you're going to just heave everything into the general trash. I also remember a very compelling discussion that we had at Warren, where we talked a little bit about, wouldn't it be nice if we could have some sort of a sunset clause whereby we could in fact try this for a couple of years and see if it produced the results that we hope are going to be produced. And I suppose that kind of qualification, if I believe that in fact it was something that could be rolled back if it proves not to be efficient, it would be something I would be supportive of. In the meantime, though, the reason I don't think it's terribly crucial how I weigh in is because as a citizen's petition, this is one of the reasons why we kicked it back to recycling, to have them put it forth to the townspeople to see how the townspeople would feel about it. So that's my position.
Right, so it is sponsored by recycling, so, but I think what you meant
was that
citizens would
that they would have
weigh
a chance to
in.
weigh in. Right.
And as a committee,
Right.
we felt strongly about that. We
We
did have
did
the
not opt to take it.
jurisdiction,
Right.
right, to make that decision on our own.
Right.
And we felt that it should go
Right.
out to them. Okay, thank you. So the next item that we're going to talk about a little bit, and I think Mr. Repetti alluded to it, was just the Warren Committee and the use of free cash. And I really appreciate the email last night, so thank you. Thank you for that. It helped. So do you want to put a little bit of your color?
Sure. Let me start, and then we might have a quorum here, so we won't be doing any deliberating.
Right, I don't want us to deliberate. I would just like to understand, how you got to where you are and the recommendation that you plan to make, which is almost the outline of what you said.
Yes, hopefully this kind of clarified the information that the Warren Committee sent out yesterday. This is, free cash obviously is on the radar and is on the agenda for the Warren Committee every year. And historically, we have a fairly experienced Warren Committee. This is my 7th year, originally, it was just trying to figure out from one year to the next how we actually got from one year to the next in free cash, because there's a lot of accounting numbers and a lot of numbers moving in and out and so on. But in recent years, we have noticed that the free cash has risen up to a level that it is both terrific and fantastic. This is a conversation that very few communities, if any other communities in Massachusetts can have, which is, is there a little bit too much free cash in the town coffers? And we have come to the conclusion that, yes, indeed, perhaps we're a bit over even the most conservative, and by conservative I mean the highest level of free cash that's appropriate for Dover, given our level of expenditures, given our level of debt today, given projects coming up in the next few years and where we might be considering making expenditures. And I just want to pause and please, Madam Chair and others, chime in. We're here really for three reasons. First of all, we're very conservative about estimating revenues in this town, and that, for the most part, falls upon the assessor's office in terms of making estimates of property tax receipts, local receipts, and so on. But they don't put in stretch numbers, and that's, from my perspective, and I think from the warrant committee's perspective, that's to be applauded. And then in the budgeting process, we're conservative about budgeting.
Well, we budget contingencies because just of the nature of municipal funds.
Yes,
right?
yeah, and that's a good thing, because, yeah, taking care, being a little bit too tight on your budgeting can lead to some very exciting times during the fiscal year. And then third, what we found is that, and this is actually, I think, perhaps a little bit unique to Dover, is that those people executing these budgets do a very good job of managing their expenses. Town departments generally are not fearful of givebacks to the town. After the books are closed and if they haven't spent all their money, they don't feel like there's some rush that they need to spend money or the budget's going to be slashed. So those three things together, and also some very good fortune in terms of the economic environment we're in and the local economic environment impacting Dover with respect to new growth and real estate and so on, which has led to some positive surprises on the revenue side. They have just led to a series of increases in the free cash position of the town, which is fantastic. But with the benefit of hindsight, and only in hindsight, this isn't anything that happened, but looking back, it's clear that given the expenses that were approved, given the expenditures that were approved at town meeting over the last few years, we have collected a bit more taxes than we needed. If your free cash position starting out is on the lower end of your comfort zone, that's a very good thing. You should actually plan for that to allow your free cash to build up, because sooner or later we are going to run into a period of time, either because of the economy or because of things specific to Dover, where we're going to need a strong, big, large free cash balance. But we got up to the point now, or we are at the point now where we are essentially the free cash plus the $886,721 in our stabilization fund, which is a non-restricted stabilization fund.
It was grandfathered.
Grandfathered in, is that? Essentially, those two amounts together, a little over $9 million, is 23% of forecasted fiscal year 18. So we've always tried to...
Of the total budget.
Of the total budget looking forward. It's a higher one looking backwards, but we're trying to, we all try to be careful about making sure we're using conservative numbers. And we just felt 23% is an awfully big number. And that money the bulk of it is coming from property taxes, with some from local receipts and some from state aid and so on. But when you add it all up, 23% is a big number. The Division of Local Services of the Massachusetts DOR recommends a minimum of 5 to 7% And to me, if we were at 5%, I would think that we were in a little bit of trouble. And I mean, I think towns that are at 5%, 6%, 7%, they should be nervous, especially at this point in the economic cycle. The warrant committee, 10 to 15%, and even 10%, and now I'm speaking for myself, is probably on the low side. Anything at 15%, or below, I don't think we'd even be contemplating this. But at 23%, we felt it was, appropriate to consider, and we did, and then voted on adding additional funds to the minimum level of free cash that we were anticipating using to balance the budget. And that additional amount that we came to was an additional 1.3 million.
So in total, it's about 3 million?
Not quite. That would put it 1.3 plus 2.9 million.
Just shy of.
Just shy of 3. Yeah. So, but perhaps more importantly is where does that leave us? Okay, and that would leave us with 5.2 million in uncommitted free cash, which is 13.4% of the forecasted next year's fiscal year 18 budget. But if you add in the stabilization fund, then we would be at 6.1 million, in funds that are available, unencumbered funds, which is 15.7% of forecasted next year's total expenses. And even that is still a bit of a conservative number, because that 15.7%, the numerator, we're 10 months into this year. The town has already received circuit breaker funds. We know that number as well. We've also, unless all the turnbacks are zero or negative, we know that number as well. And then on the denominator side, that total base next year, we're including a fully grossed up number for the sped budgets and so on. So what we use, our total expenses for next year includes things like numbers that we know we should be getting some reimbursement for, certainly. So the attitude has been to take a conservative approach to these numbers. In terms of how we got there, it's essentially to get us, there was rounding obviously, 1.3 million, it wasn't a coincidence that happened. It was to get us at a number that, with a stabilization fund, kept us above 15% of next year's expenses. So I've rambled on for quite a bit here, and perhaps questions?
So just a couple of things, as people that are watching this, and I'm sure, there are people in Dover who love crunching numbers. So I just want to make sure that they understand that in Dover, our philosophy has been to keep our excess funds in one account, which is free cash. If you go and look at other towns, you need to include their stabilization funds. Many towns, rather than put everything in free cash, earmark certain funds for certain things that they know they're going to have to replace, such as cars, vehicles and cars, building repairs or building replacements. So those funds are earmarked. So if citizens do decide to go look at the financial statements of other towns, I would make sure that they add those numbers in, because if you just look at free cash versus the budget, it's a much lower percentage, and many of the other towns. The other thing is this year a couple of things happened with respect to free cash that are one-time events, such as at the region, almost just about $400,000 was returned to the town of Dover, because the region's E&D account, which is equivalent, it's their excess and deficiency account, but that's equivalent of the region's free cash, was too high. Statutorily, that cannot be more than 5% of the budget. So they return funds to both the town of Dover and Sherwood. So I just want to make sure that and also I thought it might be worthwhile to let people know, or citizens know, if they don't already know, that our free cash balance is somewhere around $8.2 million.
Yes.
Right. So I just didn't want to misspeak. Certainly a lot of thought went into your rationale to do this. I know there's been a lot of pressure from citizens about potentially being overtaxed. I mean, we've had citizens attend our meetings as well. I'm a little weary because we do, as a town, have liabilities that are unfunded that we know at some point we're going to need to fund. And those are the OPEB liabilities, both at the town, which is very well funded for a town. But my bigger concern is the region that has somewhere around $17 million of unfunded liabilities that we know at some point we're going to have to fund somewhere around 50 or 55% of this. So in your explanation, you did not talk about looking at some of those liabilities that are out there that the town has incurred. The Board of Selectmen and the Warrant Committee met. I thought we had a very productive conversation about not only where we are today, but about the factors that continue to contribute to a growing free cash, and what are some of the things we should be thinking about to maybe begin to decrease that rate of growth. I understand your rationale. I was hoping personally that we could spend time, our two committees, looking at everything, not just for this year, but longer term, and then reach a decision. But I do respect the Warrant Committee for the thoughtfulness in which they have made this decision. So, thank you.
Yeah, and all of your concerns are with respect to liabilities and future, those are all excellent ones, and they are on the radar of the Warrant Committee too, and they're not precluded from being addressed. This is not leaving us sitting anywhere close to the lower end of what we would find comfortable or prudent or conservative. And there's discussions that are starting now with the region with respect to their...
Right, and we talked about that, and we do. I mean, we need to figure out, we need to put a plan in place along with our partner at the region beginning to fund that.
Unfortunately, fortunately, the town of Dover was very thoughtful and is pre-funding their OPEB liabilities, and Dover is actually ahead of the curve. There's 315 towns in Massachusetts, well ahead of the curve in pre-funding. The region, we are going to be meeting with representatives of the region this summer and Sherburne to talk about the regional school district making the choice. We as a town actually can't mandate it, and so it's a choice.
That's an excellent.
And then unfortunately for this situation, due to the change in municipal finance law last year, any funding for a regional school budget has to be built into their budget. So it has to be agreed upon by Sherburne and Dover. I have looked in and spoke to a couple people in the industry to see if we could set aside funds in our own sort of pre-funding a region
like our own
account,
statutory,
our own stabilization fund. But until that's matched by Sherburne in that assessment percentage and put in there, it probably would have caused more issues than it would have solved.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Kate, well, thank you. Kate, I do agree with a lot of that, the logic, and as we discussed in our meeting, in our joint meeting a couple of weeks ago, I think it's a major mistake to take the strategy that you're taking right now. I suggested you think long and hard about this. I suggested a number of ways that I think would be much more prudent from an actuarial perspective. I think you're missing the point that 1 and 1 doesn't equal 2. In budgetary processes, you have inflation factors that have to be taken into consideration. You have rising interest rates. Spending money and giving back money today is a big mistake if you think about the inflationary cycle that we're in. We're at the very beginning of a process that could take us to higher interest rates for many, many years to come. It's highly unlikely that we'll stay in an interest rate setting that we are today. That impacts That impacts the value of properties, that impacts people's ability to buy properties in Dover, that impacts people's abilities to do a lot of things. Taking money out of the system and giving it back to smooth out something that really isn't increasing at a very quick rate is just imprudent at this point. So I agree with Robin that it would have been a much better thing to have these discussions and set aside. I do get the feeling that what you're doing and the thought and the time and the effort that you've put into this had been a long time coming. So I've been on the warrant, I've been on the Finance and Budget Committee of another town, and I do understand the pressures that the warrant Budget Finance Committee has to do something like this. And I do think that the first thing that you've done in this outline is to say thank you for a job that's incredibly well done to the managers, to the Dave Ramseys, to the people of the town that have gotten you and gotten us to this position. So that's a critically important factor, so thank you for doing that, and thank you for the way you framed it. I just think that with regards to what Robin had said, it's going to make life a lot easier for every department head involved if you have that money available. I understand clearly that you're not taking the money away, that you're not taking, taking all the money away, that you feel this is a prudent an amount. But again, budgets are not created in a linear fashion. It doesn't work that way. So having the ability to segregate money and still have the money is a much more actuarially sound approach from a strategy standpoint to keeping things in your control so you don't have to go back and ask for an increase at a later date. I hope that, and so that's both sides of my position, and I hope we can agree to disagree.
Well, I think we open the door to future discussions, and I hope we continue to have those.
Right. And I do sense, I've had the pleasure of being the liaison to warrant this year, and I think I also feel that you've heard from a number of people during the course of the year who have over years been concerned about the level of free cash and the fact that it does go up. And as we all know, based on circuit breaker and other factors, it can go up almost exponentially in certain years, and it has appeared that it has really gone up quite quickly over the last few years, and I think you're hoping to address that and be responsive, and whether that's blue sky, whether that's goodwill, whether that is responsible fiscal management for the year, I just hope that all of us can be a part of a discussion moving forward in subsequent years. That would be my hope.
Is there, well, there's nothing that we have to do as a board.
No, and I really do appreciate you coming here this evening, and I very much appreciate you sending the email last night to give us something to go.
Can I just ask just a couple of questions? With regards to, does the board have a strategy, and do you have any particular order of things, for example, the set-asides? And Kate, I understand the region, and the region is a separate issue unto itself, but I can think of 5 or 6 things that we discussed tonight, and Mr. Rapetti was, that are on our agenda for Monday evening. So health insurance, pension fundings, regional expenses, the Carroll project, the adjustments or the inflation impact, and then things like just simple things that we know exist already that we have to set aside money for. Again, the Carroll projects in 46 Springdale. Those just 6 things could eat up $6 million, $7 million of money, so your free cash flow is...
Well,
yeah.
I mean, there's how much time do you have?
No, just,
I'm just teasing a little, but those are all very, very good points. Now, everybody has their own opinion on it. Now, the one that I think is most relevant for free cash are the liabilities at the region. Those are liabilities that have been building up in the past. So dedicating a certain portion of your excess tax revenues, real estate revenues, to that liability, in state, Katie's an expert on this, but makes a lot of sense. Many of the other projects, one thing that was on our mind was the level of debt that the town has, which is relatively modest and falling, which is another good thing. We don't know what the future's bringing. You're absolutely right. Interest rates could rise and rapidly and so on. But many of the other projects that we see potentially coming on the horizon would be things that are going to be benefiting citizens going forward, and perhaps it makes sense for some of these things to be funded through debt that will be paid off in the future as it is benefiting those folks over the next 20 years. And that's how you do schools and so on, the big things. Yeah, we've been looking at this a long time, and the warrant committee has got some people on it who have rather extensive, budgeting and experience, although primarily in the private sector, but dealing with unexpected contingencies come up there maybe even more often than in the municipal world. I mean, those are all good points. Part of what, in getting at the numbers we got to, part of our consideration was, is this going to leave us in a bind because the world changes and there are things coming down the pike? And again, I think the numbers, the forecast, should the number we've voted on to propose on Monday for free cash. The forecasts are already low in terms of free cash position effective. And I don't mean sometime next year or something. I mean effective July 1st. We know what the circuit breaker numbers are. We have a good idea of the town budgets at this point. Things can happen in the next 60 days, but we still have, a lot of funds for the size of our budget and the size of our plan to deal with contingencies.
No, I think it's important to continue to have these discussions and to continue to look more long range at the budget. It's a discussion we've had over and over and over again. I believe when Ms. Lisbon and I were on the warrant committee, we talked a lot about, long-range planning and looking out beyond 1 year. And I hope that the conversation that was started last week or 2 weeks ago will continue, because it's important to this town to be looking to the future and making decisions or planning for the future, rather than pretending it's not going to happen, it's not going to change. So, thank you. Would you guys like to leave?
Did you want to talk about 46 Springdale as well?
Oh.
As far as the board position?
That's right. That's fine. Yes, I mean, I appreciate, thank you very much, Mr. Ramsey. For our people at home, one of the other very significant articles that we have for town meeting on Monday night is 46 Springdale. And I believe that it's very straightforward. What we are coming to the townspeople about is with the motion to sell off the front lot that contains the buildings and the building envelope. That will go through the RFP process and will be put up for sale. And along the side of that piece of property and adjacent to the wetland and the stream there will be public access to the very back beautiful 23 plus acres.
The meadow.
That's right, the meadow that will be retained by the town and put into the care of Conservation Commission.
With a covenant restriction.
That's exactly right, under the auspices of Article 97 to guarantee that it will be protected. It will also be available for passive recreation only for the townspeople to use. Parking will be at Channing Pond, and people will have the opportunity for perpetuity to access that beautiful field in the back. That's our plan. We hope it has been responsive to the townspeople a year ago who had questions about how carefully had we looked at all of this, and I know most everyone now knows we put together a working group. You put the group together, and I was happy to get involved in the fall, and we worked with a representative from each of the boards and commissions to be sure that there was a full representation of the people on the various boards, that everyone could get on board with the same idea. And so it was a whittling down of many, many different ideas with the consultation from Landvest, which was greatly appreciated, helped us really focus, and it enabled us to bring to open forum 3 different options, and then the encouragement was, would we like to take a straw vote? And sure enough, the straw vote won the same position that our own working group tended to support, which was this 4.5 acre parcel containing the buildings to be sold and the rest to be put into the care of Conservation Commission. So I hope the townspeople will be thrilled and support it fully.
And I would like to thank you for really taking charge and doing such a fantastic job in meeting with everybody, and you did. I believe you have consensus, which is why I didn't even think that we needed to talk about this evening.
Well, it's a very good sign that it was not considered one of the articles to be pushed up. It was one of the ones we were just going to blow through. Right, so thank you very much.
And you've been so helpful. You know, I got an email from a citizen, and the answer you gave was just what, you know, just what she wanted to know, that it had been considered.
That's great.
Right?
That's wonderful. I sent that to you from the woods.
Oh,
so,
okay.
You know, it's just a wonderful, quick answer that I could give you. Right.
Yeah, this is great. We had a great,
it was wonderful.
a great day, great afternoon to get a chance to everybody. We'd encourage everyone to go have a look.
Right, it's beautiful.
It's just a beautiful
And
project.
you know, and I think that was something that we overlooked somewhat last year as a committee, is the desire of the town to be able to walk that.
Right, that's right. That's exactly right.
And we, you know, we just, in everything that was going on, it was just an aspect of it that was overlooked. So.
Well, and I want to commend you, because you and Mr. Ramsey put together this fabulous model of a rep from each one of the boards and commissions, and it was such a powerful way to build consensus that I think you and I are already, and John too, already beginning to think of other applications where we can do exactly the same thing with those same, with different questions, but to build consensus.
Right, because you do need the input from,
That's right.
from everyone.
That's exactly right.
And it's the best way to get it, and then representatives can take things back
That's
to
right.
their committees.
That's
so
right.
you're not looking at something in a vacuum, which is somewhat what happened to us last year with
Correct.
42 Springdale.
I think Mr. Ramsey has a wonderful expression of no surprise rule. You know, the surprises are really something we want to avoid. This is why we try to be as transparent as we possibly can be.
I thought swim in your own lane was the...
That's yours.
All right, so now I challenge everybody to get through the next couple of agenda items.
That should be easy.
So the next item on the agenda are performance appraisals, and I think this is just standard.
It is.
You're going to ask for permission?
We ask permission every year to commence the performance appraisal process, whereby supervisors appraise their employees, reflecting on their performance and whether or not they met expectations for this fiscal year, in this case FY17, and also to set some goals for the coming year. And after the employee reads it, they sit down with their supervisor, they discuss it, so they're both on the same page in terms of where they're at and what going forward will be expected of them, and for them to give their input. So we find it very helpful, and step increases for non-union employees are based upon a satisfactory performance appraisal.
As a supervisor, I hate writing performance appraisals. Performance appraisals.
You need to work at a smaller company.
But I do agree, it allows both employee and employer to sit down and talk. It forces you to talk.
That's right.
And it it is a great way to work together on goals for the coming year.
Yes, yeah, and we always hope that, you know, despite how uncomfortable it may feel, that the supervisors are quite honest and open, because it really, in the long run, it benefits both parties. Sometimes employees don't realize that they were expected to be doing something, or, you know, they might come to a way of getting that thing accomplished, but not perhaps the way the supervisor has it envisioned.
You know, the other point is that I've always believed if they aren't truthful, they're meaningless.
They're meaningless.
Right. So going through the motion for something that has no content, no weight to it is
Checking the
a,
box.
yes, exactly.
Yeah,
It's
and
useless.
You can see those when they come in, because usually there's very little comment, and it's just
Right, it's just, let me check the form.
Right.
It is a really valuable tool because you start having conversations. So do you need us to vote? Okay, so I'll make a motion to recommend the commencement of the performance appraisal process.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Fun to begin.
get those out.
All right, so the next thing.
Oh,
it's
this
all
is
you.
this is very exciting.
And a prop.
Oh, that's right, and I have a prop. So back in, I will. So back in the fall, when I had the privilege of sitting in on a number of historical commission meetings, the commission has a plan where they wanted to label the streams and rivers, the significant ones in Dover, as they crossed some of our main roads. Springdale, Trout Brook crossing Haven Street, Charles River and Trout Brook coming in under Claybrook, things of this sort. Tubrek goes under Hartford Street. In other words, I could just sort of think about some of the different streams. And so historical believed that they could provide some color, some depth of appreciation for the citizens. And this began the process of going to planning board, getting their approval for a sign, going to Superintendent of Streets, Mr. Hughes, to talk about could he help them form the signs once they got the approval. And all these many months later, here is...
Years, because I started the process.
Oh, did you start the process? Okay, wonderful.
Years.
So many moons ago, we are now at the point where...
They like you better than me.
No, no, actually, I credit Mr. Carlucci and Planning Board for giving us the heads up that they had come in thinking about blue with white lettering, and it was the Planning Board's suggestion that actually that the signage match the same kind of color as our street signs, and of course that makes sense since Mr. Hughes has the machinery to make those signs, but that they be green background with white lettering. So while this is only a mock-up, and it would not look like this, the idea is...
But is that the size?
Well, this could be the size,
okay.
But it'll be up to, I think, what Mr. Hughes' machine can do.
Okay.
But the idea is to have it be a green background, white lettering, and the little wave motion at the bottom to indicate that this is in fact water. And so I am hoping... Oh, okay, great. Excellent. I'm hoping that the Board of Selectmen will give your approval for these signs to go up. I believe that they're talking about 7 right now. And I hope it's interesting to people as they drive around to say, oh my gosh, Trout Brook is here. Oh my gosh, Trout Brook is also crossing Claybrook. In other words, and the joke has always been that I always heard was that every stream in Dover is called Trout Brook. Now we'll know. So some are and some are not. But that is our hope, that historical will be given permission by the Board of Selectmen, in fact, to go ahead with these signs.
So I am going to make a motion, having tried to get this many years through the process, and to approve the signage for historical commission, which will mark
streams.
That's right.
Not every stream, but the...
7 signs.
The main streams.
7 signs.
And also with the police chief's input as to the height.
Oh, I was going to ask
Right,
that.
exactly. So in other words, it will continue to be a town venture where the necessary people will weigh in about what the size should be, how high it will be, to keep it out of the way of the snowplows.
Plows will knock it over.
Exactly, right.
I second your motion, by the way.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Historical. Thank you very
Planning.
much.
Yeah.
They will be so happy.
Yeah.
It's been years. I think it's been 3 years.
Well, I'm thrilled. Thank you. Thank you very
The little
much.
things. And so now we're going to, who's going to talk to us? You're up.
Executing
2 minutes.
a sideline to the agreement
90
between the
seconds.
town of Dover and the Mass Laborers Union Local 1116. We need to back up a little. Bob Morrissey has been with the Highway Department as a heavy equipment operator since 2005. He is now retiring, and therefore a position has opened up. It is the determination of the group that works together so that because any of these employees in highway or park and rec or cemetery, they could be shared amongst them. They're the interview team. They all agreed that we have very, very good and capable internal candidates. The job was posted internally. There were 2 applicants, and the interview group unanimously recommended the appointment of Mark Stevenson, who's been with us since 2014. In order for Mr. Stevenson, if the board is to appoint him, and he said if he was to accept it, the one thing he would ask is that an exception be made to the probation rule. Every time an employee takes a new position in town, or is promoted, or lateral change, the probation period resets, and they have to go through another 6-month probation because the duties are different, and want to make sure that they can perform them. Vacation is not allowed to be used during the probation period. Mr. Stevenson has a summer vacation planned with his children, and he said really that might cause him pause if the board were to appoint him for him to accept the position. So we are asking this evening to allow for this exception to the collective bargaining agreement provision about probation, and also related to the section pertaining to vacations.
I have no issue with that. In fact, I greatly appreciate his forethought, being so upfront and explaining the reason for it and coming forward and saying he's so pleased to have the opportunity for the job, but this is so critically important. I have a lot of respect for that.
I feel the same way.
Okay.
John, do you have any issues?
No, I don't. I agree with both. And
It seems somewhat
Yeah.
of a weird rule.
It
Especially
is, but
given, you know, that he's been here.
yeah.
it's a one-time, one-person exception.
Right.
That's right.
So,
That's right. And you know, he has worked at least one winter in highway because Park and Rec
Right.
lends one of their
Right.
people, and he does a great job. So I guess we would recommend to the board to first appoint Mark Stevenson to the position of heavy equipment operator, groundskeeper in the highway department, commencing June 1st, and then ask the board to vote on this side letter, approving this side letter.
All right, so can we do it in one motion?
Yes.
Okay, so then I would like to make a motion to accept the recommendation to appoint Mark Stevenson to the open position at Highway. And I would also like to include that we would make a one-time exception to the contract to allow Mr. Stevenson to go on a planned trip with his family over the summer during his probationary period.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maria.
That was a great explanation.
Yes, for you. Thank you.
And so now the next item is to execute a DEP scope of work for technical assistance at the recycling program. You have a busy night.
This actually pertains to the discussion earlier at the moderators meeting about whether or not the pay-as-you-throw sponsors would be allowed to have Kathy Versa from DEP speak on behalf of the pay-as-you-throw article. What the recycling committee did last year, and this would be the second year, they applied for and were approved grants to allow in-kind technical assistance for the recycling committee for the Smart Plan program, or pay-as-you-throw. And this would be for a total of 80 hours. And this is just actually the scope of work agreement that the DEP requires the board to approve.
So first of all, I should thank the recycling committee for finding all these grants. I know Kathy's assistant has been very useful to them in many aspects of the recycling.
Yes,
of the transfer station. So I certainly would make a motion to accept the scope of work. Is there any discussion?
No, I agree with you. I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And now we have an appointment of a part-time police officer.
I can speak to that.
Okay.
Or fell asleep, Grizz carrying all the water. The chief had a part-time officer leave to go to a full-time job in another community, so this creates a vacancy. He's recommending the appointment of,
Ryan Collins.
thank you, Brian Collins, to fill that vacancy.
Who I guess worked for us previously as a Northeastern Co-op
Briefly,
student.
yep.
Was the gentleman that we hired in December, the special officer that we hired in December, was that the special officer who left?
No,
No.
that was a different one.
Different one. So we have 2 new special officers, which will add to the rotation. This will be the second.
Yes.
And what typically happens is these part-time officers, if a full-time officer does leave,
This is our farm system.
yeah, this is. And so this individual is currently a full-time employee of the Wellesley Police Department? And so there's no conflicts of interest?
No.
He's a dispatch officer.
Yep.
Right, so he's just at the desk.
Oh, okay.
And he's fully academy trained, so he's ready to go.
Right. So I then make a motion to accept the appointment of, see, now I can't find his name.
Brian Collins.
Brian Collins, as the part-time officer at the police department.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We don't need to sign anything, or do we? No. Okay, all right. So then we have some other business. We have some prior notices. Mr. Ramsey, are you going to talk about these?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. We have 2. One is for the police department in the amount of $30,000 for salaries, and this is caused by the unusual high demand for overtime based on the resignation of a police officer some months ago. So for shorter person for about 9 months. So we had to cover shifts. As you know, we have a very small department. We can't run short, so that's why the chief is requesting this amount.
So then I guess I'll make a motion to accept
the, do we accept prior notices?
We vote them.
Okay, so I make a motion to vote $30,000 prior notice for, as described by Mr. Ramsey.
Second, 35,000.
30,000.
30,000 for the first one and then 35 for the second one?
Oh, excuse me, I got it wrong, 35,000, you're right.
35,000 for the second.
Yeah, sorry, I misspoke.
35,000 in total.
Correct, for police.
For police.
Second.
So is it 65 in total?
No, the first one is on law.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Second.
They're separate prior notices. Apologize for the confusion.
So we have two prior notices here, one for $30,000 for the law budget.
For the law budget.
And then there's a second one for $35,000.
Thank you.
For the police salary.
Yes.
Perfect.
I had them confused in my head.
The present account balance, are those separate account balances, or do we just carry an account balance? So the separate present account balance of 10,000.
Bills that haven't been paid yet. So that's what's left.
That's the balance right now, but he's forecasting that through the end of the fiscal year, he'll need up to 35,000, up to 35,000.
Right.
Yep.
Right, so he knows that so we know this is the town accountant is certifying that this is what's left in the account.
Yeah.
And the chief of police is projecting that by the end of the year, he's going to spend an additional 35,000.
But they are two separate accounts.
Two separate accounts.
Yes.
It's just one of the things, because I have so much free time, I was reading the audited report.
Oh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, exactly. Which speaks to the sequence of events of how the free cash is taken out, so which makes perfect sense. Thank you.
So now we have.
Did we vote on the 35?
35?
I thought
We
we
did two.
voted on the law.
You did.
Do you need two votes?
Okay.
With
Yes.
Ms. Ian's correction.
Okay, we did vote the 35.
Yes.
Have we voted the 30?
No.
No.
Oh, I thought I did it for both. Okay.
We need two.
We need another
I
one.
thought I
Two
did it
accounts.
all in one motion. All right.
I
so-
second your motion.
All right, so 30,000 for overage in the law
The
budget.
law budget.
All in favor? And that there was a lot of stuff going on this year. We had the solar array that required 3 or 4 different
Yes.
agreements.
Been a very busy year for town council.
The rail
Rail
trail
trail.
we had, there's a lot of things going on. Right. So I'm not surprised by this prior notice.
Yes, thank you.
Although we didn't have 2 town meetings like we did last year.
That's true.
So the next item of business is the tree pruning.
So the,
Bid.
the,
We do this every year.
we do.
Right.
So this is in keeping with our 5-year tree plan. And the bids were opened last Thursday for tree pruning only. There were no takedowns this year. And John Gilbert, the tree warden, and Craig Hughes, superintendent of streets, are recommending that you award this bid to Northeastern Tree Service, the low bidder, with a bid of $12,960.
There's a huge
That's a
disparity.
huge difference.
It's just a
Right.
huge, yeah.
Have we used?
Oh, yes, and we've used all of these.
I know. You know how I know? Because I love the name Stumpy Street.
Oh, I know. And they love it. I see it everywhere. It's just like the best catches people's attention.
Just the best name ever.
It is.
I know.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
That's wonderful.
So we need to make a motion to award the pruning bid to Northeastern Tree Services, Inc. for $12,960.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye. I'm just signing everything.
I just love that. Right, so then we have a lot of special licenses.
Springtime.
Tis the season.
Springtime. Lots of events. Lots of taste testing events. I think we should.
One day, I am
Can't
going
you-
to be
can't you
invited
use-
to one of these weddings.
Can't you use your gavel to get some type of invitations for board
Right.
members?
So we have a lot. We have 12, so I'll read them and then we can approve them all at once. And they've all been signed off by the chief of police, and so we should be good. So there's a retroactive one on April 26th at the Connor Center. And it was a dinner. April 28th, there's another dinner at the Connor Center. April 29th, there's a roundtable social hour at the Connor Center. And April 29th, there is also a wedding reception at Elm Bank. May 4th, there's a fundraiser at Elm Bank. May 4th, there is another fundraiser at Elm Bank. Oh, it's all the same fundraiser.
It's all tasting.
It's
all
a beer
tasting.
tasting, okay.
Can we get invited to that?
May, all right, so I'll do a shout out. May 4th, Jack Abbey's Brewing is a part of the fundraiser. May 4th, Astra Luna Brands is also part of the fundraiser. And they're on here twice, okay?
Probably morning and night, or afternoon and evening.
And May 6th, we have a wedding at Elm Bank. It's given them a little time to clean up after the beer tasting fundraiser. And May 6th, there's, it's a popular day, a wedding at the Connor Center. May 23rd, there's an academy dinner at the Connor Center. And May 29th, there's the Polisset Farm Festival. And if nobody's ever been to that, it's kind of fun. So I make a motion to accept all of these liquor licenses, one-day liquor licenses.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Get your pens ready.
Okay, I'll divide these right up right now.
All right.
All signing, all of them.
Wow. See, you just do one initial. That's not fair.
Since I have to sign checks, you could do the same thing. There's no rule. Candace writes her name beautifully.
No, I don't. No, I actually don't, but thank you, or not.
Sometimes people like to frame them their wedding. So.
Now you tell me. I'm picking that up, Mona. You just want me to feel bad. They write out my signature. You go, who is this person?
So those three are finished, I
Yeah, those
guess.
are finito.
Finished.
One time I took them all home. I did bring them back. You did? I was sort of surprised when they showed up in the bag. All right, so now we have the minutes from the March 30th and the March 13th, and April 13th board meeting. So we can look at March 30th first. This was, actually, that was the meeting, so it wasn't so long ago when the town moderator came to present the plan for moving, moving some,
right.
which is an excellent plan. We talked about the landscape maintenance at the cemetery, the feasibility study at the Carroll's Community Center. We approved an extension of the Land Vest Advisory Services Agreement. We discussed the ballot. We approved the operating budget for the Norfolk County retirement, and we discussed the Ruth Pfeiffer Scholarship. And we made some appointments that evening too. So I really had no changes to the minutes. Does anybody else?
No, beautiful minutes, golly.
All right, so then I make a motion.
Sort of like this is your life, you know, it's just an amazing account.
Makes us look like we do.
We did a lot.
Yeah.
Every week we do a lot.
It is, and it's a great record. And
It
you say,
is.
when did that happen?
They can be used against you.
So I make a There's an
A
art to
second.
writing, there's a minutes. I make a motion to accept the minutes of the March 30th.
March 30th, seconded,
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and then we're gonna,
April 13th.
April 13th, where we talked about the rail trail, the North Fork Club came and made their pink presentation.
We had to give it back. We had to give it back.
I love that pink presentation. And then we had the pilot, we discussed the pilot agreement. We talked about the Park and Rec revolving fund. We approved the expenditure of the Conservation Committee's gift to purchase the Potter property. Porter. And then we accepted a couple of gifts from the department, up from the DP for recycling, and we executed the Green Community Grant certification and application. And I believe members of the town went to pick up the $137,000 check.
Yep.
That was exciting. So we were officially the Green Community.
Right.
So
I second.
you seconded and I'm going to make a motion.
Yes, I am.
All right, and then we have
Cleanup Day, May 6th.
citizens, it's my favorite day,
Excuse me.
but that's okay. Is it May 6th or May 1st?
See, it's May, I think it's down here, May 6th.
The description is really at the bottom of the first page and the second.
Okay, so cleanup day in Dover is May 6th. And if you get up early on Saturday morning, and if the weather cooperates, you see a lot of busy beavers in the
It's fun.
town
It's wonderful.
filling yellow bags.
Right.
And it just amazes me. I don't know what people think happens to their trash when they put it out their car window. Oh, I'm just amazed by things that are out there.
Should I offer a reward for my missing boot that's still missing?
Okay,
Did it come out when you were riding? When you were riding?
I haven't told you this.
No.
Oh my God. I took my shoes off after riding, brand new Timberland with a cover on it. And, after riding, they were wet from all the mud and splashing and stuff. And put them on top of my son's car.
Oh, and drove off.
He drove off. So, because it took,
So you have one boot.
so one day went by.
Okay.
One day went by, and I'm getting ready to at night to ride the next day and say to him, the shoes that were on the top of your car? And he looks at me, what shoes? What are you talking about? We left our house, went down Springdale, started looking for them, found one. Right on the side of the road.
But not the second.
Found one. Yeah.
Interesting.
It's too bad you don't have a picture. We could offer them a one that.
I'll bring one next time and put it right there. A town meeting, I'll put it up
How
on
far down Springdale?
the first one. We found as you turn the corner from Church Street down Springdale, right in front of Officer his house, the second house in from Springdale.
I'll bet you the first one went off before.
Yeah. So we've been
somewhere between your house and that spot.
Yeah. So we looked.
You have too many
everywhere.
Too many turns for it not to have gone off before.
So we'll have a reward.
How long ago was this?
It's now 2 weeks.
Oh, somebody's going to find it. I think you should ask the recycling committee to post
It's
it on their website.
Brand new. I don't know. I have to figure out what one brand new size 11 Timberland hiking boot costs.
About $100.
Exactly.
Yeah.
$100 gift certificate to the cottage.
The problem is you can't buy just one.
Exactly.
So that's the pair.
Maybe worth 200.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Officer Harry, thank you very much. Shout out to Officer Harry, and I actually looked for it the next day while I was riding.
Oh gosh, I won't have my eyes will be peeled for the next month now looking at that.
Now that I know there's a.
Is it a Tim color? Regular Timberland color?
Yeah,
Okay.
regular hiking,
Right,
you know.
so know, it's late,
Let's
so
go.
why don't we make a motion?
Seconded.
All in favor?